This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
It is a beautiful, crisp, chilly October morning, and can you believe it? We can see the sky. It is not blanketed in grey clouds, and in fact, there is promise of a marvellous sunrise. A very good morning to all of you. My name is Jamie, and this morning Dave is on camera with me. And we're coming to you live from Djuma Private Game Reserve in the Sabi Sand in the Greater Kruger National Park area of South Africa. Isn't it lovely? A really stunning morning. The birds are calling. And because we're taking you on a live safari, that means that you can send through your questions on hashtag SafariLive on Twitter, or alternatively in the YouTube comments section. You can also ask questions in the comments section. It's not just for comments. Let's go. I sat still for long enough. I am now on the move. It is time for us to go to the den. I'm very, very excited. I've been doing a lot of backtracking into the Djuma clan's history while I've been away, looking through lots and lots and lots of footage yesterday afternoon. And I am excited by our discoveries, and my curiosity is heightened into the way in which our two top females, or most dominant females, Corky and Pretty, are going to be interacting with each other. Yesterday I was quite convinced that the den had moved. I was wrong. It has not. And it is still active. Oh, car's making some slightly ominous rattling sounds, but we're going to ignore those and press on. Oh, good morning, Martin. Been a while since I've heard that voice. I can hear Martin all the way from the Mara. Good morning. I hope you are well. Okay, we're right at the entrance to the den. Fingers crossed, toes crossed, hold thumbs, whatever else you happen to do wherever you are, for good luck. Into low range so we don't frighten off little cubs running around. It's about 13 degrees centigrade this morning, so around 56 Fahrenheit. That for us is, that's positively Arctic temperatures. That is, I'm wearing two jackets. It's basically the Mara first thing in the morning. Oh, morning Martin again. I hear you. I hear you. You ever tried doing this? That's what it's like, try to talk and present at the same time and listen and drive. Oh, perfect timing. Look at that. I see a hyena. Please don't just walk away. I will sob. I came through here with such great excitement and enthusiasm. Don't you dare walk away. Oh, good morning. Hello, Corks. Okay, let's quickly get a shot of this before we stop at Corky. Sorry, Darby. Let's just quickly get a shot of this hyena because it's moving away. I want to know who it is. No idea. I still haven't learnt them all. But there you go, a nice side shot for the hyena fanatics out there. I'll get there, I'll get there. Cool. There we go, there was an opportunity for you to screenshot that individual because it's walking away. And back to Corky. You know, naming things is of course a greatly controversial matter out here. But of all the hyena names that we have passed on, and all the hyena names that have been chosen, Corky somehow has always been the most appropriate. Because she is always, always corking up the den. Sorry, my foot was on the brake. It is Corky, yes. Look, 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 look. Hello. Oh, goodness me. Look at that. Tiny little face just popped its head out. It does. It does look like a really bad haircut, that bald patch. The bald patch has also got a little bit bigger, something that I've noticed immediately. I'm still not all that concerned, though. I think this cub just has a tendency to rub its face in the dirt. Oh, brilliant. Thank you, Michael. Apparently the hyena walking away was Causa. So one of the clan males. Come on, little one. Out you come. Oof, I have to confess, I wouldn't want to come out of that den site either. If I were a hyena cub, it's cold out here. Corky, you are not making life easy for the little one. Look, see. That's why it's biting you. You're sitting on it. Wonderful, gentle, caring mothers that they are. Just casually plonk their 60+ kilograms down. Okay, while Corky corks up the entrance and we wait for the cub to come out properly, let's go across because we're not the only ones out here, and Tristan has already found his leopard of the morning.
Indeed we have, and well, Corky seems to be good at corking up the entrance to her den, which I'm sure her little cubs don't appreciate. But there you can see little Hosanna, who's lying up in the grass, looking kind of quite cold and miserable, given that it is cold, and he deserves to be a little bit miserable this morning, and I'll tell you why. Because the reason is that he has last night he gave us a bit of a sort of tough time, and I'll get into that shortly. So my name is Tristan, as Jamie mentioned on camera. I've got a Senzo, and it is a very warm welcome to all of you. It's not so warm from where we are. It's freezing cold this morning, but anyway. Now I say that he is miserable, and he deserves to be, because last night we had a rehearsal, and obviously you all know that Hosanna spent the entire drive with us. As the rehearsal started last night and the rain started to bucket down, Hosanna thought it would be a good idea just to walk off into this delightful drainage line that we have below here, and disappeared for the entire rehearsal. We did not get one view of him, and so we ended up driving around getting absolutely soaked with rain and did not see him for 1 second of our entire rehearsal, which was, well, like I say, it's deservedly that he is sitting a bit miserable. And the reason really why he's miserable is because his father has once again stolen his kill. We didn't expect anything less, but perched in the tree is where Tingana is at the moment. You can just see his spots through the thickets. He's lying right on top of the kill, and so poor Hosanna has lost out once again to Dad. I think it is Tingana. It certainly looks like Tingana, and it means that, you know, the distance that we're seeing these two is pretty much sort of synonymous with the fact that it must be him. You know, you wouldn't really see Hosanna lie this close to a male leopard if it wasn't Tingana, so I'm pretty sure that it is. I'm pretty sure that he is just kind of waiting, hoping that scraps fall down. Now, it's delightful because also this morning the Mara team thinks that our radio channel is their personal talking channel, so we're hearing the Mara team non-stop at the moment, which would be nice if they would stop talking a lot. But anyway, Kirsty says she's trying to shout at them. Yes, Kirsty, even though it's Sunday, you must shout at them. They are not allowed to talk on our channel at this time because Jean-Ray's voice is making my ear sing at the moment and go on fire, so they're talking quite a bit. But anyway, it doesn't really matter. I do apologize if I was a bit kind of stumbly on my words. But we expected this to happen, given the position of where Hosanna is. I mean, he's right on Tingana's territorial patrol. I mean, Gari Katlan is a road that Tingana will always use when he's moving around Djuma, and so the chances of him keeping it was going to be kind of quite slim. He was going to have to time it absolutely perfectly and hope that Tingana had a killer of his own if he was to keep this. The problem now is that, unfortunately, instead of lasting 3 days, this is now probably going to be finished by this evening, because Tingana, well, he wasn't probably that full when he arrived here, and he would have eaten his fair share. Hosanna's eaten quite a bit, and so I doubt that there's too much actually left of that Impala carcass, and so, you know, probably find by even this afternoon maybe that there won't actually be anything left there. There will be just probably a few little bones, which is a bit unfortunate. Anyway, we're going to try and see if we can find a better view of Tingana and maybe see if we can actually confirm that it's him. While we do that, though, let's send you back across to Jamie, who seems to be having the little cubs that have managed to somehow bypass the corked hole.
It's amazing. Oh, he was sitting watching Corky's cub, who's just settled in for breakfast, and all of a sudden Pretty's cub came dashing round the back of the termite mound with great enthusiasm. It was absolutely amazing. There we go. There's little Corky's one. Where's it gone now? There we go. There we go. Look. Good morning. With such great enthusiasm. Hello. Aren't you gorgeous? Oh, and bye-bye again. Where's your mum? Is she round the back? Where's your mum? Yes, let's do it, Kirst. Let's bring in a wider audience to see how cute hyena cubs are. Look at this, come and share in our joy at the sight in front of us. It is first thing in the morning here in the Greater Kruger area. I've got to move really slowly. Really slowly. A very good morning to you all. My name is Jamie, and this is live from the Sabi Sand in South Africa. On camera with me this morning is Dave, and he is as enchanted as I am with the sight in front of us. We are at a spotted hyena den on Djuma Private Game Reserve, so we're in the Greater Kruger, which is right up in the top northeastern corner of South Africa. And because this is live, it means that you can send through any questions that you may have, and you can do that and send them through to us, and we can answer them for you. Isn't that incredible? It's still absolutely astounds me that the technology is available to be able to share our favorite moments with you. Now, we've got to know the Djuma clan quite well over the last few years because we follow them each and every single day if we can find them, and we've been very lucky in the sense that there are now 2 tiny cubs belonging to 2 different mothers. That mother over there, her name is Corky, and the reason that she's called that is because she corks up the den. Now, why do we name each individual hyena? Because hyenas are incredibly complex and have the most phenomenally confusing social structure unless you really get to grips with it. Now, what she's doing at the moment is settling into a good spot so that that little cub with the bald spot on its face can have a drink. Now, Kelly, although spotted hyenas have a very close relationship with each other and are very much dependent upon each other, no, one mother will not nurse another's cub unless under a very odd situation, because hyenas are ranked according to a very strict hierarchy. So there's high-ranked females and low-ranked females. Now, if there is a high-ranked cub, because they inherit the status from their mothers, they will sometimes get away with suckling from a low-ranked mother because the mother is too scared of disciplining the cub in case she, in turn, is disciplined by the high-ranked mother. That's the only situation where hyena cubs will nurse. Okay, come with me. There's multiple entrances to this den, and this little cub is settled into suckle. So what we're going to do is we're going to go around just a little bit, and we're going to see if we can get a view of the other one. I'm just going to let the engine run for a second. Okay. It's that. Almost 10 years old now. So a hyena will only have her first litter of cubs at the earliest around about 3 years old. Stop here. Look there. Look who's curious. So she's probably only had about 3 or 4 litters, if that, and not all of them have survived. Now here's the wonderful thing about hyena cubs. Hello. Good morning. They are incredibly intelligent, and very, very curious. And this little one wants to come and say hello to us. Now, Maria, you want to know why the life of a baby hyena isn't easy. I can hear one calling off in the distance, off towards the east. I think it's a little bit far for you to hear, but that ooh. Let's have a look. Let me duck down so you can look into the sunrise and listen. Awesome. Now on our live safari shortly, Tristan will tell you about that hyena because he's been looking at it. Here's the cub again, it's come out. The life of a hyena cub is not necessarily all that hard. The reason being, the mothers with their high levels of testosterone are very big, very strong, and produce the best, most protein-rich milk of any of the mammal species out here. That, combined with the fact that they're protected in the den site, means that they have a really soft start to life. And it's only when they leave the den that life becomes more complicated. But if it is a low-ranked cub, that is where times get tough, because it is often bullied by absolutely... David really wants to come up to us. It's amazing. It's now about 2 or so months old. I'm starting to see spots coming through on the shoulder, and it really wants to come up and investigate the vehicle, but it's not quite brave enough yet. And that's what it's doing. I'm not going to push any closer, because it is going to, as it gets older, come closer and closer to us. And if we push too hard now, we'll actually discourage it a little bit. That was so cool. Oh, come on, little one. One more time. Come and say hello one more time. There you go. Look, look, look. There. Whee! Oh, we're getting so brave. Come on. Come on. You can come say hello. Oh, chew some grass, do hyena things, and we're dashing back away. And that, everybody, is why we were so excited to bring you across to see those wonderful moments. It's been an absolute joy sharing them with you. Remember to stay tuned, because we're out every day with the amazing wildlife of Africa. So for now, from the greater Kruger in South Africa, we're going to say goodbye to you. If you would like to continue watching, you can just Google SafariLive and the safari will continue. Thank you so much for joining us. This little face is just poking out around the corner. It's adorable. Okay, I'm going to sit here and coo a little bit over Pretty's cub, who is now back again to say hello to us. So one last look, and then we'll send you across to James, who hasn't had a chance to say good morning to you.
Hello, good morning, how are you all? It's very nice to be out on acrobatics this morning. My name is James Hendry, and I was performing some acrobatics there because it's very cold out here, 13 degrees Celsius or so, which is not very warm, 58 Fahrenheit odd. We are on the bushwalk side of things. There's already huge entertainment on the 2 driving vehicles, so I'm not sure we're going to be able to compete, but hopefully we will be able to find perhaps Tandi, the 12-year-old queen, and her daughter, Claramba, nearly a year old. It was quite dramatic, wasn't it, for a Sunday morning? Yes. Sebastian Rombi is on camera. He has got a buff around his face because it is so cold. He looks like he's about to rob a bank. Luckily, there aren't any banks around here for him to rob. Herbert is on security detail. You are on questions and comments using the hashtags SafariLive on Twitter and, of course, the chat stream on YouTube. Let us sally forth. There is the sun. It has come up. It's a lovely quiet morning. Just the odd hornbill going. Emma, you say you feel a song coming on. Well, then you should sing it. I don't feel a very strong song coming on, but for the song of the orange-breasted bushshrike, and that of the hornbill. Wonderful. Good. On we go. All right. I think probably slightly more entertaining than my imitation of a, shall we say, club-going red-billed hornbill, Tingana, sleeping in a tree.
Well, don't sell yourself short, James Henry. You are by far one of the most entertaining features of our Safari Live crew, and so, like I say, I'm pretty sure most people would be wanting to see you do your red-billed hornbill impression more than they might even want to see Tingana sleeping in a tree. But you can see it looks like him. I'm 99% sure it's Tingana. Obviously, he's quite hidden behind all of that, but it looks like the right kind of spots for his face, especially that left side, and you can see he's passed out on top of the carcass. Hosanna last night moved the carcass a little bit higher when he was feeding, and now you can just see underneath his belly there is where the fur of the impala is, and so it's kind of draped underneath that big tummy of his. There's a little bit there, and you can just see an ear sticking out. Now there really isn't much left of this carcass. It seems as though most of the legs have been eaten, and that means that I don't think that these two are actually going to even be here this afternoon. I'm pretty sure this was going to get finished up by the course of the day, which is a bit of a problem, because obviously this evening we're trying to do our first SABC show, and we were hoping that they would still be on the carcass by this afternoon or evening for everybody to see them. So hopefully, you know, if they do finish up, they don't go far. It would be ideal if they didn't move off, but I wouldn't be surprised if they are both gone by this afternoon, because that really isn't that much food. Although Tingana does not look like he is in any way interested in doing anything right now, whether it be feeding or anything else. He is completely fast asleep. In fact, the whole time I've been here, I don't think I've seen him lift his head once, and that includes even a hyena that arrived here, walked about the tree. Hosanna growled at him, and then even was the one that you might have heard whooping from where Jamie was. So there was a whooping hyena, which was the one sitting right next to us, which was quite cool. We actually could hear it very, very nicely. And both leopards did not seem to care at all. They both kind of didn't even lift their heads or anything to watch this hyena whoop. So the poor hyena's concert fell on deaf ears, so to speak, on this end. The spotted cats were not impressed by the performance so far this morning. But it's amazing to me that Tingana finds these kills as regularly as he does. It's almost Murphy's law. Every single time he kind of, poor Hosanna makes a kill, Tingana shows up in that area before it's finished. It amazes me how quickly he finds them. I know that I said earlier that this is obviously on a territorial patrol route for him, but given the weather conditions yesterday, I would have thought Tingana would have been off hunting, and the chances for Hosanna to have kept this kill was probably that much better. But alas, Dad's nose does not fail him, and somehow with the wind and the kind of gusty weather that we had, he must have picked up the scent of this and kind of followed his nose this way. I found where his tracks came from. His tracks kind of came from Central Road, so he must have just turned up Gowrie Cut Line following his kind of nose, which is interesting, because the wind was actually blowing. When I left this carcass last night, the wind was blowing the opposite direction. Now, I also have a bit of other news from last night, talking about all these cats and stealing and all these kind of things. We obviously know that Hosanna killed that poor wildcat yesterday, well, not last night, the night before. And, you know, weird twist. Last night, driving around looking for Hosanna around here, we bumped into a wildcat of all things, and it was a very relaxed wildcat. We had a really cool sighting of this little wildcat grooming itself in the rain. And then it kind of walked parallel with us for a little bit and then stopped again and groomed itself and was very, very relaxed considering. I mean, normally wildcats can be a little bit shy and will run away, but this guy was super chilled. And there was a big, big male that we had. It was very, very cool to see. I haven't seen a wildcat in quite some time. In fact, I think the last time I saw a wildcat was just before the first show of Gauntlet. In one of our rehearsals, we saw one, but prior to that had been probably over a year and a half. So they're not an animal we see very regularly at all. So it was really quite special to kind of come across it. And like I say, in the rain, for some reason, it was just that much more relaxed. So we ended up probably, what do you reckon, Senzo? Not even 10 meters? About 10 meters from where that little wildcat was, and it walked around and stopped and groomed, and it was very, very, very cool sighting. So that was a bit ironic, I suppose, that we were looking for Hosanna and found a wildcat kind of not even 24 hours after he had killed the wildcat. Now, I don't think in any way that that is a partner of the wildcat that was killed before everybody kind of jumps to that conclusion. It's not the way that wildcats work. It's much like leopards in that they don't form a partnership and that the sort of monogamous relationship. They will mate and move off and have their little litters, and then kind of, the males will be territorial within that area. So it's very similar to a leopard's dynamic. So I don't think it was the mate. I definitely do not think in any way that they were connected. I think it was just a weird coincidence. Right, now we're going to sit here and see if either one of these two cats decides to actually wake up when the sun comes up. And so while we do that, let's send you back across to Jamie, who I'm sure is loving her morning with the little hyenas.
I'm loving my morning with the little hyenas. It is a weird coincidence, though. None of us could believe it when Tristan told us what he'd seen last night. Corky's up and about. She has completely disturbed the little bald-faced cub, who is now trying desperately to suckle while Mom sits on it. Graceful. Very graceful. There we go. There we go. Oh. Little bottom. Mom has not picked the best spot, has she? I'm going to go around the back of the den in a little bit, once this one settles into suckle. The reason being, I am quite keen to see that. I'm assuming that Pretty's on the other side, at the other entrance to this den. I just don't want to disturb the scene in front of us. I haven't seen Pretty's little cub pop its head over the termite mound since you last saw it with me. Can't get comfy. Mom's really made life difficult here. Did I get that question right, Kirst? I think Angela's wanting to know who determined that hyenas should have their own species. Was that correct? So, Angela, I mean, it's been, I don't know the exact date in which they decided to term hyenas their own species. I know that historically, way back when, people just assumed they were some kind of dog, which of course they are not. They're actually not even closely related to dogs. They evolved completely separately to dogs. And if you go far enough back, really far enough back, you might find that they're slightly more closely related to cats, or the cat family, than they are to dogs. At one point, the hyena family was massive, and there were some enormous individuals, or enormous species of hyena. They would have been utilizing the really, really large prey that the enormous, prehistoric's the wrong word, what am I looking for? The things like the saber-toothed cats that actually couldn't consume the bones of the massive prey that they brought down. There were enormous hyenas that were around to do the job for them. Then it seems as though once those large cats died out, so did the larger species of hyenas. As to who determined that they were a different species, look, I mean, there's very clear differences between hyenas or the hyena family or the cat and dog family. The most important being the way in which they anal paste, the structure of their anal gland. But there's other differences too. There's structural differences. There's social differences. They have a far more complex social society, at least in spotted hyenas, than they do compared to cats or dogs. The next step, of course, is to talk about the four different species of the hyena family, or the hyena order. So So you've obviously got the spotted hyena. There is also the brown hyena. There is the striped hyena, which I've never seen, and I'm devastated that I've never seen one. Seen a lot of brown hyena. I've worked in a place where brown hyena were the dominant predator, interestingly enough, but I've not seen striped hyena. And then the sort of the metaphorical black sheep of the family, which is the aardwolf, which only feeds on termites and sort of insect. It's an insectivore, and included after much discussion between biologists, to be then included in the hyena family due to the structural anatomical similarities, most importantly again, that anal gland. Oh, Corky, now you're just being unfair. What is your cub meant to do? She wants to be comfortable. She keeps sticking her head down into the entrance to the den. Oh, little one, Mum is not being nice to you today. All it wants to do is have breakfast. Oh man. Kirsty's just said that this hyena cub, now that the bald patch has spread slightly, reminds her of Jim Carrey from Dumb and Dumber movies. It does look like a bad haircut now. It's no longer just a bald patch. Oh, shame. Corky, how is that fair? Although I suppose gave her the opportunity to clean its bottom. Oh, you cannot expect your cub to suckle like that. Now it is contorted completely. Right. This cub's really had to work for that breakfast. And not only that, it now has to submit to having its bottom cleaned while it tries to suckle. It's got a bald tip of its tail too. Right, as enthralling as this view truly is, as intriguing as it is, let's go to James, who's got a stunning bird of prey.
There is Mrs. Wahlberg, everybody, and I've yet to see Mr. Wahlberg, the pale form. Apparently he did arrive. This, of course, is, we think, the female who brought with her a young buck lover when she returned from her migration earlier this year. Now, I have heard that the second pale form, quite possibly the original male, has arrived at the nest. So I'm not sure exactly what's going on with this lot, but it's time for them to start mating and producing more Wahlberg's eagles, because, well, that's what Wahlberg's eagles are supposed to do. Isn't it lovely in this light? And hopefully this poor eagle will have a bit of heat to fly on today. Rather miserable few weeks of summer we've had so far. Largely cold-fronted coming through here, which of course makes life very difficult for any bird of prey, except perhaps the bateleur, which has a much, well, greater ability, I suppose, to fly low without thermals, on account of its lack of tail. The Wahlberg's eagle has a very thin, straight tail, and that is very diagnostic when you see an eagle flying high above you. Beautiful. In the background, a grey-headed bush shrike going. Franklin's. And otherwise a generally peaceful Sunday dawn. Very lovely to have those hyenas at the den, with of course the hyena whisperer herself. I'm sure that Jamie Patterson would like to be known as the hyena whisperer. Gorgeous. Well, we're going to continue down the road now and continue seeing if we can find some tracks of Tundi. The nest is just up here, so we'll have a look. Julie, that tree is a marula tree, Sclerocarya biria. It is yet to receive its leaves, and I think that's why she's sitting on it, because they do tend, rather like the vultures, to sit on leafless trees. There's the other bird. There's another bird right next to the nest. Let's keep going. They do tend to sit on trees that are leafless because it's just easier for them to see out of them and scan the landscape for any potential prey species. And also, of course, if they want to take off, they don't then get stuck in the foliage. Now, let us see who is at the nest. Is it the young buck lover? Or has Mr. Wahlberg chased him? It's flying away. It's the dark form. So that's the young buck lover flying off into the sun there. Can you see there how he's struggling to gain height? Flying along and falling to the ground until he turned to the south where the wind is coming from, and that helped him to gain a little bit of lift, but otherwise very difficult for him to maintain his height. And that's because it's so cold. No, Michael, I don't think so. I don't think one sex is more likely to be any differently coloured than the other. I think it's fairly random. It's quite interesting, though, that they should exist in these different colour morphs in such sort of, I suppose, equal proportions. You don't find that in many birds where there are lots of different colour morphs that exist in such different proportions. You find it in feral pigeons. Yes, they have lots of different colour morphs. You do find it in some birds. You find it in goshawks. You'll find melanistic goshawks, so dark ones. You'll find leucistic ones from time to time and red ones, but not so ubiquitously within the population. And so it's very interesting to me, and interesting that, or to think about what function that could have in their lives. Why is it that the Wahlberg's eagles have these very equally distributed different colour morphs? It is fascinating. So there's the nest, and I don't think there's anything in the nest right now. Now, Shamsan, I'm not aware of them returning with their year-old fledglings. So I don't think that, well, it certainly isn't a year-old fledgling, the dark form that came back here, because they didn't produce a youngster last year. And perhaps that's put too much strain on their marriage, and that's why they broke up. But last year they didn't produce a youngster. Just on the subject of feathers, quite interestingly, I've been reading about feathers, or something called urban evolution, where a lot of animals have adapted through various mechanisms to adapt to live in urban environments. And one of them, of course, is the feral pigeon. And you know that you find many feral pigeons with very, very dark feathers. And apparently the darker feathers obviously contain more melanin, and that melanin helps them to cope with heavy metal poisoning. And melanin absorbs from the bloodstream heavy metals and toxins. So that's very interesting, and so you're most likely to find very dark birds in heavily polluted areas. Where the areas are not so polluted, you'd probably find them, like the Wahlbergs, to be in lots of different colour morphs in relatively equal proportions. I don't believe that the dark morph Wahlberg has any such advantage over here. There's a question from someone. Who was that? Was it Conrad? Yes. Is heavy metal poisoning when you listen to too much heavy metal music? Conrad, no, that is not the case. When you listen to too much heavy metal music, you have an affliction called deafness, where your ears no longer work. That would be described as heavy metal damage. Heavy metal poisoning is when you are exposed to a number of pollutants, such as excessive zinc, for example, which can be toxic to the body. Conrad is sitting in the final control room, everybody, thinking he's being very funny this Sunday morning. Alrighty, we'll keep going down the road here, find some leopard tracks. Let's go across to the big boy.
The big boy, well, yes, Tingana is the big boy around here. He is as dopey a cat as you could ever imagine. I know, that's why I just ignored it, Kirsty. I know that James was trying to talk about me, but I just ignored it and just threw it onto Tingana. He can take the mantle for today and can be the big boy around here. He certainly has shown Hosanna that he's got a long way to go before he's able to compete with Tingana. But anyway, male leopard is fast asleep at the moment. He is got himself into the most awkward of positions. It almost looks like his head is about to fall through the tree, and then on top of that, his bum looks like it's about to slide out the back end. So, oh, hello, boy. Nice to kind of see you actually awake. Yes. Good morning. Your son is still there. He's not going to go away. There's a little growl as well, just to tell him that it is his carcass. But like I say, he's kind of precariously perched at the moment. I'm half expecting his whole bottom end to just slide out of the back of the tree. There you can see his kind of tail and his backside sort of hanging over, and then somehow he's managed to get his one leg around the top of another branch. It really does not look comfortable up there at all for somebody of Tingana's size, and then he pops his head down kind of between the branches, which it looks like he's having a tough time actually getting himself comfortable. Well, if you're a thief, then sometimes these things are a good lesson as to why you shouldn't be a thief. Is if you're not comfortable, then thievery is not for you, although Tingana, we know, will do anything he can to find a meal of his own. The good news is that the sun is coming up, which is going to make things a lot warmer, which is going to be quite nice. So, parties, Bobby. Yes, I actually could see Hosanna doing that. He opening up a little hip food truck that he parks on the side of the road as a mobile food truck, and then he just sells his meals to the family members, particularly, and then anybody else that really wants to come past, he'll begrudgingly sell to them. They don't get the family discount, unfortunately. You know, people acting, or leopards like Tingana and Tundi, they'll get the family discount, a little 10% off, and then, you know, he'll be able to sell his things. What do we think we would call his food truck? There we go, #SafariLive or @FC, the name of Hosanna's food truck. And what do you think his logo would be? I think it would be quite interesting to see what we can come up with. I'm pretty sure James and Jamie will weigh in on all of this and give us something. Now, Senzo, if you come to the right here, you see there's a little bird sitting in the sunlight. Let's have a look at something that's a little bit more active than our... So this tree that's fallen over, and then straight in over there somewhere. Oh no, don't fly now. Now it's gone towards the big tree. Go straight in from where you are. Straight in, straight. Now down a little bit to the left. There it is, over there. I think that's it. Is that it? No, that's not it. It's now somewhere in that mess. Senzo, I keep doing this to you, where we see a bird and it goes into a mess of branches and horrible stuff, but it was a little chin spot batis that was sitting out in the open at one point. Of course, it flew away and flew into the thicket there. It's bounced up a little bit. Straight in. There in the middle of the screen. There it is, bouncing around. Yes, chin spot batters. There you can see the chin spot of the female, so the big marking on her chest, which the male does not have, so he lacks the chin spot basically, or that's where they get the name from. So there's a little batters bouncing around. Isn't that cool? They're such kind of flighty birds. You don't see them that often. It's always nice to kind of see them bouncing around and moving through the vegetation. This is a perfect habitat for them along this little drainage line. You'll find them kind of moving around all the time. Now, Kirsty, have you got a name for Hosanna's food truck, and what it would... April, you say Kruger Kills? Maybe. I feel like Hosanna is a little bit more kind of quirky. I think he would have a punny title, so Kirsty would be a good one for this. I think he would have something quite entertaining as his title, and Amber says Hosanna's Hunt Hut. I like that one. That one's quite cool. I think Senzo's nodding, saying yes, that's a good one. He likes that. Hunt Hut sounds good. Do you think he'll have heavy metal music blaring from there? Because that would disappoint James if he did. You know, he is a rebellious teenager, and therefore he should, I suppose, have some sort of kind of rebellious music playing from there. Maybe heavy metal music would be how Hosanna rolls. I don't know. Maybe that's how he kind of decides what he's going to actually sort of hunt as he gets himself all prepped up to go and find the food, is that he'll listen to heavy metal music. I don't know. Maybe James has other ideas. Yes, I like that one too, actually. Chris Rogue, you say Hosanna's truck should be roadkill. That would be quite cool. I think it would be very cool if he had a little truck. Man, imagine him just kind of pulling his little truck along with his little, like, Impala hock on it, and then he can just kind of sell it off as he goes. And I wonder if he'd do business with hyenas. I'd imagine that he would begrudgingly do it. Nostridge, the carrion cart. I also like that one too. There's lots of good ones coming out, actually. You guys have all got your thinking caps on a, I suppose, Saturday night, Sunday morning, depending on where you are in the world. Here we go. Here comes Kirsty's. Everybody, are you ready? Here it goes. Go, Kirsty, go. So Kirst says the little chef. I do like that one, Kirst. That's well done. Yeah, exactly. The little chef is a nice one, and I definitely think that he would be that kind of chef that he would like the proper chef hat, the tall one that's a little poofy on top. I also think he'd have a pair of sunglasses on, because Hosanna is just a cool cat, and he would kind of have his little spatula in one paw, and you would just come past and you'd be kind of flipping his little bits of meat and the knife in the other paw so that he can kind of cut things. And he's quite something with Hosanna when he's in his truck. He's very good at selling his wares. Exactly, and a tail too, just to... No, that's not for cutting stuff, because the tail is for adding spices and flavouring to whatever he's doing. It just adds a little touch. I don't know if any of you have seen the guy that does the salt, that holds his hand funny. That tail would be perfect for little adding pinches of salt to whatever he needs to, making sure that his food that goes out is both tasty and well seasoned via the tail. This is absolutely a ridiculous conversation that we're having, but you know, when two cats are as sleepy as this, I suppose a food truck conversation makes sense. And also the fact that Hosanna keeps losing his kill to everybody, it makes... Exactly. It definitely goes along with our Buffalo Milkshake Bar, and I wonder if maybe Hosanna can go into collaboration with the Buffalo. Maybe they can have a little, you know, Hosanna's food truck, and then next to it can be the Buffalo Milkshake Bar. And you know, once you've got your meat from Hosanna, you can then go through and get your milkshake from your buffalo, and there you go. It would be perfect. And if you really want something a little bit kind of different, you can get a little bit of cheese from the buffalo shop, and you'll be able to add that to your hamburger that Hosanna makes. Hosanna's hamburgers, they're pretty special burgers, and he sometimes adds a little bit of, you know, the buffalo cheese that goes with it. You know, this is a business opportunity that our animals are missing. I reckon they would be quite famous if they had their little food trucks set up. Next thing we're going to actually see one day is going to be a market, and there's going to be all of them. It'd be quite interesting to see what the elephants and the hippos bring to the table, but I reckon that leopards and buffalo have got us sorted for a pretty decent meal at this stage. Although Tingana doesn't look, Tingana looks like he's maybe visited the apple juice shed that has been supplied by the baboons and has had too many, and that's why he's kind of passed out the way that he has in the tree with limbs dangling in all different sort of directions. Right, now of course we haven't gotten the opinion of the two J's, so without further ado, let's send you across to Jamie so she can give us her opinion as to, one, what Hosanna's food truck would be called, and two, what the hyenas would have up in the market.
Okay, hold on 1 second. I just want to be quite quiet for one moment. Sorry. Beautiful timing. A little one. Oh. So Pretty was here. She was lying in a different entrance to the den. I think she wants to come out and lie in the sun. I was just hoping the little one would come out properly. So I rate that if Hosanna's food truck would literally just be called Hosanna's. Family meals for all occasions. And the Wildcat was just one of those failed recipes. You know, in the good trusted meal plan or restaurant that you always go to suddenly decides to branch out into fancy meals? I think that's what happened there. Nobody took to it. Now, the hyenas are big fans of Hosanna's. Where should we go tonight? Let's just go to Hosanna's, eh? That's what I really feel like. Good hearty meal. Really low prices. Oh, bye, pretty. Thanks for that. It's a steal. Let's go to Hosanna's. It's a steal. I do feel as though it would be a family restaurant, though. Definitely family meals. Hosanna knows all about that, doesn't he? Family discount. I also feel as though I can't decide if it's a family restaurant or one of those late night vans or early morning, depending on how you look at it. It's okay, little one. No, sorry, it's coming out, Darby. You know, the kind of vans left out or that operate late into the night for students returning from their revels on a random weekday when they really should be at home in bed preparing for their lectures the next morning. That's what Hosanna sounds like. One of those late night fast food vans. It's okay, Munchkin. I'm not worried about distracting this little cub. Obviously its mom has walked off, and usually if there's no mother at the den, then we immediately leave. However, Corky is still here, so just to let you know, I'm not worried about that. Oh, look how beautiful you look in the sunlight. I'm finding it very difficult to go into the realms of the bazaar with Hosanna's trailer because I'm distracted by this little face. Bye again. When I was at university, there were two fast food restaurants. There was the Van of Life, and behind it was the Trailer of Death. And the Van of Life was slightly pricier than the Trailer of Death. So it really entirely depended upon how much money students had at the end of their night where they went. You can guess that the difference was not just in the price, but in the way that one felt the next morning. It was only under very desperate situations that people would brave the Trailer of Death. Literally right next to each other. One on one side of a courtyard, the one on the other side of a courtyard. And if you're feeling really fancy, there was always the McDonald's. Okay. Are we gone now? It's bedtime. Oof. Fair enough. I mean, it is absolutely freezing. So without Mum's... And I'm not exaggerating. Remember, we're out in the open here. I know it's not cold for those of you who come from really cold climes. But we are out in the open here, and the wind is howling, which means that it's taken the temperature down by about 5 or so degrees. That in turn, for an animal that's been born into they were born in winter, but they were tucked up in the den. Now they've started to come out in the beginnings of summer when it's been really, really hot. Now all of a sudden it is cold. And a lot of little animals actually die during cold snaps like this because they're just not prepared to cope with it. It's not uncommon after a sudden drop in temperature like this to find unexplained deaths. I'm not worried about the hyena cubs, they're fine. But to duck in, the fact that it's ducked down into the entrance to the den makes sense because it really is very chilly. Okay, so shall we go back to Corky now? Pretty, I'm very disappointed. I was really hoping she was going to come and sun herself and then the cubs would be a bit more playful. Okay. While I think about hyenas, I'm sure James has many answers as to exactly the nature of Hosanna's fast food truck.
No, I don't really. I've been actually racking my brains about and I've come up with absolutely nothing original whatsoever. I just don't think it would be fast food. I think it would be fairly sophisticated cuisine. And so I guess, yes, the simple hosanas would be the perfect thing for it to be called, because simple is normally sophisticated, but I can't think of anything original. I'm sorry about that. We are looking for an impala over here. It went running away. It has the bravery of a very, well, cowardly thing, whatever a cowardly thing is. No, it's gone, hasn't it, Sebastian? It has gone. The one mammal that we found today has now disappeared. Anyway, we're in the region where yesterday Sydney lost Tundi. I say that as though it was Sydney's fault. It was not. Where Tundi managed to lose Sydney, I think, is more correct. And we haven't found any tracks, so maybe during the course of yesterday's blustery evening she managed to whack something and stick it in a tree somewhere close by, so hopefully we'll be able to discover that. Otherwise, very quiet out here. Just the odd bird, no alarm calls, and lots of wind. I'm also walking along here, looking at the bases of all the grasses, and wondering why it is that there are no flushes of green at all yet. And yet we've had some good rain over the last few days, and I would have expected by now for there to be just little tendrils of green coming up in the tufts. But thus far, there is nothing but grey. So that's a bit sad. Well, here's a seedling, actually. That's quite nice. A seedling of a tree has popped up. I'm not sure what that is, actually. That's quite nice. Fortunately, it's not going to survive because it's growing on a road. But it's made an attempt. You think it is? Sebastian says he thinks it's a marula.
More asking than saying.
I don't think so, because it doesn't have a terminal leaflet. The marula's got a terminal leaflet. This doesn't. But I don't know what this is. It's got thorns. It's got thorns.
Oh, okay.
Has it got thorns? No, it doesn't have thorns. I don't know what this is. It's got a bit of a smell to it. It might be one of those monkey pods, the cassias. But maybe today, after a bit of sun, there'll be some flush of green. Also, it would be very nice to spot some elephants after a long while without them on foot. Okay, well, back to Big Boy in the tree and his friend Tristan.
Indeed, he's still up in the tree and still sleeping as deeply as you can even imagine. I thought there was another vehicle that joined us, and I thought maybe that would spur him on to do something, but alas, Tingana, yes, definitely had a big night last night. Look, those paws are even kind of covering his eyes because the sun's getting bright. It's like when you used to be at school and you used to have a Sunday morning and you'd think, oh, it's time for a sleep in, and then your parents would come in and open all the curtains and blinding light would kind of hit you in the face and you'd have to wake up. It was the worst thing ever. I don't know why parents do those kind of things. I don't know if it was just me or if it... Kirsty, did your parents ever do that to you? When you'd have a Sunday morning sleep in and you'd think, oh, I'm not going to have to wake up early. Yeah, Jerry says so as well, and Kirsty. It was the worst thing when parents did that. I don't know why it was like that. They always used to say, it's time to get up, and then the lawnmower would start going outside, the curtains would open, and it was just a very rude awakening. Exactly, the vacuum hitting the door is always the worst one. As that's very true. Kurt says that was my worst, when you heard that thing start up, and then next thing you just hear it dung on the door, and you knew time to wake up. There was no chance you were going to get any sleep out of that. But yes, Tingana, I'm afraid, is definitely not in the mood for any movement whatsoever. I was hoping that with a bit of sunshine that it would kind of spark both of them into doing something, but so far nothing really has done the trick. Not even the hyena that was here. Like I said, they just literally walked right around Hosanna. He lifted his head, looked at the hyena, and flopped back down again, and just couldn't be interested in going after any sort of activity. Can you actually see that Tingana almost looks like he's got rolls of skin that are on his ears? That's just how big his dewlap is. Now that he's kind of leaning his head forward, he almost looks like, what are the name of those dogs that get the sort of folds of skin all over their face? Shar-Pei. Exactly. He almost looks like a Shar-Pei the way that he is at the moment. His kind of his neck and dewlap. That's why he just put up his head. He's like, who are you calling a Shar-Pei? I don't look anything like a Shar-Pei. Look at me. I'm a prime condition. Just because I visited the tavern last night doesn't mean that, you can call me a Shar-Pei. And he's looking around a little bit. Hassan is still out cold. And Tingy, good morning. Has it been a tough start to your day? He doesn't really look like it's been a tough start, does he? And let's see if he puts his head back down between his paws. It can't be comfortable, surely not. Holding your head kind of the way that he has been certainly doesn't look very comfortable at all. Michael, I don't know. Now, the simple answer to that is I'm really not sure as to how long, Tingana is going to tolerate Hosanna, or if he's just going to keep kind of tolerating him. I mean, it's possible that he just doesn't chase him away. At the moment, it's a kind of win-win deal for him. He's not really having to worry about Hosanna mating with any of his females. He provides food for Tingana, and in some ways is even scent marking a little bit, which will deter the likes of other leopards in some respects. I mean, I don't know if other leopards are able to pick out how old Hosanna is, but he is actively kind of marking around, which I suppose is kind of helping Tingana in many ways. So maybe he will just kind of stay tolerant of him. I think the only thing that would really break that tolerance would be Hosanna's trying to mate with females within his area. I think that would really kind of spark Tingana into action. But you never know. I mean, there has been instances in the Sabi Sands before of male leopards tolerating their sons mating with females, and in fact mating with the same female at the same time, which is a pretty weird thing. But I don't know. The answer to that is I'm not sure. At this stage, it looks as though both are fairly comfortable with what's going on. Now, Hosanna has just gotten himself into the best Sunday pose ever. I don't know if we can just see him there, Senzo. It's a bit kind of through the bushes. It's not ideal. No, don't move, Hosanna. Stay where you are. So he's kind of sitting right off on our left-hand side, and he's kind of got himself on his back at the moment with his paws in the air. So you'll see that there's a car. Well, it's not a great view for poor Senzo, but there you can just see paws in air everywhere, and his head is back, and his little white tummy is grabbing all of the sunshine. I think he's trying to warm his tummy up at the moment. It's very funny to kind of see his tummy at the moment. That is a proper Sunday sleep. I'm going to roll forward a little bit just so Senzo can get a better view of this. So Senz, just hold on. Let's try to get you into that gap there. So there you can see the little chief, who's... How happy does he look? This is an example of a Sunday sleep-in at its best. Sausage 1 up in the tree, who's got his head kind of between his sort of arms, and then Sausage 2 at the bottom, who is looking happier than you could ever imagine. Look, even his face looks happy. He's got his kind of big full tummy, and this warm sun is now hitting his tummy after a cold, wet night. I think that is happiness 101 right there. If you're ever going to define happiness in a single image, I think that would be it. Oh boy, are you waking up now? Yes, he makes me laugh. He's such a funny cat, this. And Kirsty says, look at his little paws. Kirsty, I'm not sure if we're looking at the same image. His paws are monstrous these days. They've gotten really big. If you look at the size of his head and look at the size of those paws. Exactly, there's his chef mittens. He's got his oven gloves on this morning because it's cold, and he's been busy. Maybe he's been baking this morning. That's why he's got his little mittens on and his little, oven gloves to make sure that not only do his paws Exactly, impala pies this morning is what he's been baking. There was a leg that fell down, so he thought it's a bit kind of mangled. I'm just going to turn this into an impala pie. And he's been baking with his little chef mittens on. Sunday special on a cold day, impala pies by Hosanna. So X-Ranger, you say paws in the air like you just don't care. Exactly, that's Hosanna's motto. He lives by it and does it very successfully. This is the most ridiculous conversations are being had this morning, but it's quite fun. I enjoy when we go off on these tangents sometimes. Hello, Hosanna. Good morning, boy. He's are you going to see who's driving around? I always love when there's a car that drives, because he always gets these big eyes and looks around. Oh, boy, what are you doing? That is cuteness overload. He's saying whatever the hyenas have done this morning, I can do it better. Anyway, talking about hyenas, let's send you back across to Jamie, who I believe has got a hyena that's impersonating both of these leopards.
This is another example of a Sunday morning lie-in. But in this case, it's for all the mothers out there who never got their lion on a Sunday morning with tiny children, and who were woken by the sound of a door creaking at around about 5:30, with a small child standing in it, and then climbing into bed with mums. So that's what this Sunday morning is all about for these hyenas. And in this case, Corky's been lucky. She's managed to feed her little one, well, not very well. I mean, she didn't exactly make it easy. And then she sent it back down to bed because it's cold and windy, and she's managed to doze off once again. But it is the light and troubled doze of a new mum. Hey girl. Not a new mum, but the mother of a young baby. Exhausting, isn't it? We've got to work all night. Hosanna's was closed. Say my name, boy. You want to know? Sorry. Say my name, boy. Would like to know what the purpose of the hyena's long necks is. Gosh, I just had a weird moment of deja vu. Ooh, that was weird. I don't know what misfired in my brain there, but that was so weird. Brr. I've been transported back 3 years to looking at hyenas and possibly answering this exact question. Looking at a hyena lying exactly like this. So the purpose of the hyena's long neck is all combined into the structure of and the function of a hyena. So a hyena is the one animal that is capable of cracking open the larger bones and getting into the marrow within them. Not only that, but actually chewing and digesting large pieces of bone. It allows them to, or takes them sort of out of competition with the larger big predators. Remember this, spotted hyenas are apex predators. So the entire front of the hyena is much, much larger than the back end. And there's several different reasons behind that. One is that for hyenas it almost acts as a fulcrum. So they are perfectly positioned to grab onto something and to pull backwards, and they basically leave it around their shoulders. Then they've also got phenomenally strong muscles around their jaws, obviously because they crush bone, but those muscles have to have somewhere to attach, and by the sort of the natural order of things, muscles have to have a muscle that works in opposition and a muscle that actually basically balances out the joint. So it's no good having strong jaw muscles alone without other strong muscles, because that would be completely useless. But when you combine those with really powerful neck muscles and connections that run all along the vertebra and up to the sagittal crest on the top of the skull, that is when you get that combined force that allows them to break into things like buffalo femurs, to lap at the bone marrow within. Oh, somebody's coming. Nope, somebody's not coming. Are you coming in? I think there's another vehicle that would like to come and enjoy this sighting with us. I'm actually going to leave as Pretty has left and Corky shows no sign of moving. And at some point I know that there are other people that would like to come in here and see our hyenas. Okay, so while we exit this sighting and move off on our way, let's send you back across to Dozy Hosanna, who's resting after hard work starting his chain restaurant.
Indeed, it's, being a businessman means that Sunday morning is all about resting, and once one has baked the impala pies and sold out all of his wares on Saturday afternoon craft market, it's time for a little rest, and I'm sure he is loving the sunshine on his tummy at the moment, because he keeps kind of rolling onto his tummy, and there's a little yawn and a little pause. Hosanna? Even though you're getting big, you still have cuteness overload factor when you like this. He really is a funny little cat, this. Now, of course, he's, like I say, little, but he's not that small anymore. He's grown up quite a bit, and I suppose I'm going to have to stop calling him that at this stage. He still is little in comparison to his dad, though. His dad is a much heftier animal. In fact, when we drove up here, even from a distance, you could immediately see that it wasn't him up in the tree. It's just not the same depth of size as what Tingana is. Tingana is just so much bigger around the shoulders, head and neck area, and he kind of still dwarfs Hosanna in that respect. So he's got a little bit of growing still to do, but he definitely has grown a lot. If you look at kind of pictures of him from when he first arrived in July compared to today, he's bulked up a little bit, or a lot already, and has already started to grow into his kind of body a bit more, and he's starting to get that sort of adult look about him. He's got times when he's got this kind of cute baby face still, but he is getting more and more, well, starting to look more and more like a adult male leopard, and hopefully he sticks around in this area. It would be so nice if he did. I would be very sad if he decided, or he got booted out by Tingana. I would hope that he's going to spend some time at least close enough that either we get to see him or at least follow where he goes. I'd be very sad if he disappeared off into the Kruger and we didn't get many updates about him. But that is a content cat, is it not? He's got his chin out a little bit, getting some nice sunshine on his chin and his tummy as well. Yes, Connie, he does look a bit like Tigger from Winnie the Pooh, doesn't he? He's kind of got that same sort of look about him this morning, where he's just kind of enjoying the sunshine, and his tummy is quite fat, though. You can see he's got a nice full tummy, and doesn't it look so fluffy on his tummy? It almost looks like you want to just kind of go and sort of cuddle up with him, or put your head on his tummy and just kind of lie there and watch the sort of clouds go by. But obviously would not be a very good idea if you were to do that. Yes, your dad is still on your kill, I'm afraid, Hosanna. Kind of looked up as hoping, I would imagine hoping that Dad had left and then he could have gotten something, but alas. So, sorry, Chris, can you just repeat the first part? The car started and I missed the first section of that. Yes, that's exactly it. So, Nostrich, you say that you know how you often blow on a baby's belly. That's what you want to do right now with Hosanna. Yes, indeed. There's something about the way that he's kind of sitting now, and this way the sun is sort of highlighting that fluffy fur on his tummy. It makes you kind of want to go and just kind of give him a bit of a cuddle, but like I say, obviously that would be a very, very bad idea. It certainly wouldn't go down well with him. I'm pretty sure he'd be not keen for you to go anywhere near him. Like I said, he's a rebellious teenager at this stage of the day, and you know, he's probably doesn't want any attention anymore. He's like, leave me alone, I just want to do my thing. Also, he's an entrepreneur now. He's soon we're going to have to book appointments with Hosanna if we want to see him. He's going to be too busy for us with all of his things, and he's going to build a sort of empire of all kinds of things. He's already got the fame, so now he's branching out into the sort of food chain or restaurant chain industry. Anyway, talking about starting out things and kind of seeing what goes on. James is out on bushwalk and he's seeing what's happening, and I'm sure he must be quite happy to be in the morning sunshine, much like the rest of us.
relatively happy to be in the morning sunshine, but I'm not happy to be in the teeth of this very chilly southeast wind, which makes it feel much more wintry than October should feel. October, of course, is the most important month of the year because it is my birthday month, and therefore much more important than any other month of the year. Now, we stopped over here to show you a little bit of greenery that is in fact coming up. There it is. That is how it occurs. Very slowly, the grasses start to produce little green leaves, and they are manufactured, they grow from the base using a lot of the stored energy in the underground roots and, of course, the underground stems and rhizomes that there are on a tufted grass like this. And so those are the first sort of signs of summer for this grass, and were a grazer to come across that, they would devour those green shoots very quickly. Remember that this above ground brown stuff over here contains almost no nutrition, except for very efficient users of cellulose like perhaps buffalo, for example. But most other grazers will really struggle to derive any nutrition from the above ground sort of dry grey brown stuff. But every so often as you look around you can just see these little tufts of green coming through, especially where they're moist. And you can see that this grass here that I'm holding is wet from yesterday's rain, but like Sebastian and I were in the evening, very unpleasant it was. Anyway, not so unpleasant for this grass, which is now turning green. And these are Eragrostis species. I think this is Eragrostis rigidor, actually. So not particularly good for grazing, but any grass, when it turns green at the beginning, is quite nutritious. Okay. Oh, John, that's almost impossible to say because no plant will be the same. So the survival rate of new plant grass or new shoots out here, I mean, it really does depend on where the thing is, what it is. Is it edible normally? Isn't it edible? I don't know. I really couldn't tell you. I can tell you, however, that a grazer that comes past a grass plant like this and takes that grass off is highly unlikely to kill the plant. So it'll still survive under the ground, and if you graze it sufficiently, so for example, if you were to take this plant here, this grass tuft here, and let's say a grazer came past and took off all these green shoots, right? What that would mean, of course, is that this plant could no longer use these leaves to photosynthesize and produce more sugars, which it could then store in the roots. So if you take this off, it'll then have to use stored energy to produce the next crop of green. If you then take that off again, very quickly, before it's had time to rebuild those fuel stores, then eventually you'll deplete the fuel stores under the ground, and then eventually the plant would die. But very few plants, unless you uproot them completely, will die if you take off the above ground material. They've evolved to cope with it. And so as long as there's sufficient rain in an area like this, which this year we are expecting there to be, well, then you're not going to kill plants by grazing them. If it got very dry, then something like a warthog would come along and start digging them up, and then it would make a big difference. But just taking off the above ground green stuff is unlikely to create a real problem for the plant unless it happens repeatedly at the end of the dry season. I think it's going to take a little while, Anna-Marie, before we start seeing blue comelinas and strings of stars, and I think that's because they are plants that need quite a lot of water, and they're plants that need quite a lot of sun as well. So it's going to take a little while. I would say a good month or so before we start to see those. It tends to be, you know, they're annuals, and so they need a lot of surface water in the soil. They don't have deep roots that grow over seasons. They've got roots that must come from the seed straight away. So they'll need quite a lot of water, and they'll need quite a lot of heat, certainly more heat than there is right now. What was that? Oh, sisters, you want to know if we plant food for animals? No, sisters, this is part of the Greater Kruger National Park. It's a national park, so it's a wilderness area. We don't do any feeding of animals, so there's no planting. We do provide water for animals. Well, we don't. I mean, the reserve provides water for animals, but no, there's no food provision. There have been times, and they've put salt licks out and that sort of thing. And in fact, you can buy commercially available mixes of wild grass seeds that you can use to reclaim an area. So if an area has been denuded of grasses, perhaps eroded or through road use or something like that, you can seed areas with I suppose, natural plant species, natural grass species. But no, we don't do that here. It's not impossible that it might happen at some stage, but there are no areas here that would require it. And so as far as possible, this always kind of sticks in my throat when I say this. When I say we try and keep things as natural as possible, we try and let things be as natural as possible, because of course providing artificial water is one of the most unnatural things that you can do. There are lots of debates as to whether or not it's a good thing or a bad thing, but we try not to interfere too much, and planting of grasses for animals would be, I suppose, pretty extreme interfering. Quite difficult to make them grow as well. Thank you, sisters, for that. Now, Tundi disappeared somewhere into this riverbed last night. We don't know where, because we haven't found one track, and we've done a whole big loop around here. And I'm wondering if she hasn't just managed to whack something inside, and maybe she's sitting feeding like Hosanna and Tingana have been doing over the last little while. So we'll continue searching this gully for tracks while you go back across to the restaurateur.
Well, yes, hopefully Tundi and her little one are somewhere around and that James will find them, and that they will show themselves. It seems as though Tundi was on a serious mission yesterday, so it always can be a bit tricky when she's like that. She also too disappeared for our rehearsal last night. It was quite something to see sort of two sets of cats just disappear in about 2 minutes. But anyway, we can see Hosanna has now decided enough cuteness. He's going to just roll up into a little ball. The wind is very cold, and so he's kind of curled himself up and had a brief view or sort of watch of his dad for a while, as he kind of thought maybe I can get some sort of food out of it. But Dad is still passed out on top of the kind of meal at the moment, and so there's no way that Hosanna's going to get anything. What does sound like it's approaching is some ellies. I can hear some branches breaking quite close by, so hopefully they will kind of come through. Now, be truthful. Tumba, you haven't heard any updates about him for a while. Is everything kind of, has there been any updates? Yes, he's now become a celebrity. He's decided to move off. He's bought a new home out in the French Riviera, and he's living the life up there and just taking it very easy. And he started his own kind of show that he stars on, and every now and then kind of gets some updates. But he likes the private life more than anything else, and so the French Riviera was the perfect place for him. No, I'm joking. He was seen I actually can't tell you the last time he was actually seen. It wasn't that long ago though I got an update about him on Londolozi, that area. So he's around. He just, unfortunately spends a lot of time on an area called Ottawa, which is very, very, very seldom, well, it's not seldomly traversed, but it's a big area and only 2 cars can be on it, and it means that often it's not really covered, particularly that far sort of eastern side of Ottawa, because it's quite far away from the Singita camps, and so he kind of mills about in there and often goes unnoticed, and then also into Marthley, which again is only 2 vehicles driving on there, and sometimes even as far as into Mala Mala. So he kind of drifts around quite a lot, but he has been seen quite regularly. I see a lot of photos popping up of him from Londolozi, so it seems like they're seeing him probably the most out of any of those 3 sort of properties, and he seems to be doing really well. He's constantly on quite big carcasses, and he looks kind of as though he's developing much like Hosanna and is getting quite big, and still got those beautiful kind of greenish colored eyes. He's a really good looking leopard. That I do wish that he would come back. I think it would be so cool to have a Hosanna Tumba sighting again. I would be very intrigued actually to see that interaction and see what would actually happen between the 2 of them, whether or not there would be aggression, or being curious, as Hosanna is, whether he'd approach Tamba and they'd kind of just sit near each other. To be very kind of intrigued to see what would go on. Obviously, you know, the last time that we saw them interact, there was lots of growling and hissing, and then they lay next to each other for a while, and eventually then Tamba got up and moved off, and Hosanna kind of followed him along a little bit, but there was nothing really aggressive about it. But that was, you know, a year ago now, and so it will be interesting to see if that's changed, if between the two of them there's a little bit more testosterone flowing, and that they'd be a little bit more kind of grumpy with one another. But it was such an epic sighting to see the two of them together. It's probably one of my fondest kind of leopard memories from my time at SafariLive, is watching those two, and just kind of Tamba's attitude as well. He saw Hosanna and he was like, oh well, you're here, I'm going to go and drink anyway, and went and had a drink, and only once he had drank did they actually have a little kind of interaction, and they were almost nose to nose at one point, kind of snarling at each other, and then they literally went and lay down pretty much next to each other at one point. There's still a little bit of growling and sort of huffing and puffing, and then Tamba decided no, he's done with this, and moved off, and kind of Hosanna followed. So it was very, very cool sighting that I thoroughly enjoyed watching the two of them. And it was amazing at that age already that there was this kind of, I suppose, instinct that there was a certain way of going about interacting with another male leopard. You kind of saw both of them would show their teeth, and they would, you know, Tamba obviously was a bit more submissive in that he kind of lay down a little bit and tried to kind of turn his head, which is a very submissive maneuver in many respects. But it was interesting how they both kind of had that typical leopard posture that you see in the big males already at, you know, just over a year old. So it was a very cool kind of study into the instinct of these cats, that a lot of it is not taught. I mean, you must remember that both of them grow up without really seeing male leopards all that often, and particularly male leopard interaction. That's all just instinct that they are relying on, and they kind of then posture and do their thing to try and defend themselves. I suppose there's probably a little bit of learned behavior from their mothers when they interact with things like hyenas, and they'll kind of see how it goes, but you know, most of that would be an instinctual thing. Now, earlier I was saying that I was hoping that the Ellies would arrive here, so I secretly am still hoping that they'll come up. The last time I heard them, they were somewhere just to the kind of south, sort of east of where we are, which is basically in the direction that Hosanna's tail would be pointing. Across the drainage line is where they sounded like they were breaking branches, and the reason why I would want them to come through is because it might just spark both of these cats to actually wake up a little bit and start to do something. You'll find that if they do come through, obviously Ellies are big animals, and while if they are not really on the same path as these cats, the leopards won't move, but if the Ellies smell them, see them, you'll find that they'll sometimes kind of just give them a little chase and kind of push them on a little bit to nudge them on their way, and the leopards will have to find another spot to lie down. But at the moment, it is definitely all about Sunday, sort of chill day, and taking it very easy. Right, now Hosanna is out, Tingana is out, the Ellies haven't arrived yet, and so let's send you back across to Jamie, who, I don't know what's wrong with her, but apparently she's just staring at the ground.
Yes, I really am. I'm just staring at the ground for the sake of it. I have short-circuited, and I'm staring at the... Why do you think I'm staring at the ground, Tristan? What do we stare at the ground for all the time? Really? Sunday morning snarky safaris. It's Tundy's tracks. Going this way. I'm just trying to work out whether or not they are from yesterday, but I see Tlalamba's tracks in there, I think. Not that I have any idea how big Tlalamba's feet are, because I've never seen her. Sorry, I don't know, Darby, sorry. I'm looking. I'm staring at the ground. I'm short-circuited. No, it's not Tlalamba's tracks, that's a porcupine's tracks. How very confusing. Let me reverse a bit so I can show you the difference. Hey, Kirsten. They are pretty similar, I'll have you know, when you're driving. Okay, look. There's a leopard track. I'm going to jump out, don't worry, Darby. Make life a bit easier for you. Oh, this wind is so pleasant. Okay. So, I'll get my shadow out of the way. These are Tundi's tracks here. 1, 2, 3, 4 toes, and her back pad over here. This, and I'm sorry I was wrong, is not a porcupine track, it's actually a honey badger track. And they are similar, before Kirsty has anything else to say. So this is the back track here, this is the back lobe, the front lobe, and the toes. And the claws that are just visible, extending out from the track. So that's what I thought was Columba's track, because I didn't see the back part of this pad at first. I only saw the front part and it looked quite small. Now, this is walking straight towards Philemon's Dip, which I'm kind of reveling in the being on my feet and moving. They're going towards Philemon's Dip, which is where they found her yesterday. Dave was with Sydney, I believe. I don't know where Bushwalk team is, but you might be able to be of assistance. I'm cold. Okay, so we're going this way. I was once told in a private message that I must stop complaining about the cold because it's ridiculous. Fair enough, I suppose. It doesn't mean that I don't enjoy being out here. It does not detract from the enjoyment of tracking a leopard on a cold, windy morning. It does, however, make our job slightly harder when the wind is blowing. Also, when you have the same surface area to volume ratio that I do, staying warm is an issue. Okay, cool. So Bushwalk is on Ingwe Alley, which is the direct line that these tracks are taking. I really want to find Tundi. I haven't seen Tlalamba before. Not once. I have yet to meet that little leopard. Heard many things about her. Watched in envy as the others here had her playing as a tiny cub, looking utterly adorable. I should actually slow down a bit because I don't know where she's gone. Dave was just telling me what following her last night was like, and apparently she took them on such a crazy mission. She's a really very difficult leopard to find and to follow. She does not... Karula used to do something similar, but not to the same extent. I mean, Tundi just... She bobs and weaves and zigzags and doubles back on herself, and to track something like that, especially after the rain that we've had, and it's light rain, so it really the ground gets very compact when it dries. It makes things very difficult. Okay, so Bushwalk is on Ingwe Alley. I think what I'll do is just loop around. I confess, I don't know where the boundaries of Tundi's territory are anymore. I haven't a clue. If it had been Karula, I would have known, but with Tundi, I'm not 100% sure. Right, speaking of Bushwalk, they are just up ahead of me, and James has found some evidence of death.
Yes, some evidence of death. Death is all around us, of course, and life and death all around us. The great juxtaposition. No, that's the wrong word. Never mind. I'm going to leave it there. Anyway, there is death around us. You can tell Jamie next time you see her that Tundi's territory is pretty much exactly the same as Karula's used to be. Now, what we have over here is a very worn joint. Can you see that? I suspect that would be a candidate for knee replacement were it on a human being. And as far as I can work out, this is the... I always get this wrong, don't I? I think this is the humerus, actually. In other words, the top part of the foreleg of a buffalo. Now, there is nothing out here, even a hyena, that is able to break this open. And it is one of the food sources that our human ancestors used to make use of. It was one of the few things that they could get at that none of the major predators could. Bone, you might say, and nay, I say to you, it is the marrow inside the bone. There's a lot of very rich marrow inside a bone like this, but it's totally impossible to crack open unless you have got some form of tool. And there's a very famous story of one of the Leakeys, who, of course, I guess you'd call them paleoanthropological royalty in Africa. They did a lot of work in Kenya. I think it was the younger son of Richard Leakey, I forget his name, and he was up near Lake Turkana in Kenya, wandering about looking for fossils and evidence of ancient hominids. And what he found was a modern human being, a young boy, sitting on the lakeside with a big stone, cracking open a bone like this. And he watched him break it open and suck out the marrow. And he suddenly had a eureka moment where he realized that that's what one of the resources our ancient ancestors evolved to use, because nobody else has managed to get at marrow from bones like this. And of course, when you've got large numbers of ungulates all over the place, many of them, most of them, dying of completely natural causes, while the scavengers were eating the meat and the smaller bones, no one was taking advantage of the marrow inside. And so our human ancestors did just that. On we go. Sorry about that, Martini. You say my humorous commentary is not very humorous. I am now ruffling. Can you see me ruffling? Sebastian, do you know what ruffling is?
No.
It's rolling on the floor laughing.
You look like a tortoise on its back.
I'm not rolling, that's why. This is more ruffling, I think. Let's continue. Amber, you say, am I trying to be funny? No, I'm not trying to be funny. I am being funny. One cannot force humour, Amber. One must just attempt. Crystal, you say you just died. I'm sorry about that. I look forward to taking your spirit on safari over the coming months and eons. I'm most impressed that as a member of the netherworld you're able to talk to us through Twitter. That's very impressive. I'm not sure even the Almighty himself has managed to use Twitter just yet. Oh, not Twitter, YouTube chat, of course. Right. Okay. Oh, some dung. Let's look at this dung. What is this dung, you might say to yourself? What dung could this be? Well, the answer is kudu dung. And the reason we know that it's kudu dung and not giraffe dung, which is very similar, is that giraffe dung would be spread over a much greater area. So this was most likely a kudu, quite possibly one that was lying down during some rumination to have put it in such a place. And we'll just show you the kudu dung next to some scrub hare dung. We'll break both open. There we go. There's the kudu dung. And you can see bits of leaf in it, so you can see there's very clearly a browser, not a grazer. Right? And then the scrub hare, which is a... well, it's an omnivore. Well, it's not an omnivore, no. It's a herbivore, but it eats lots of different kinds of herby things. Now you can see that they are both almost equally well mashed up and digested, but they have two completely different strategies for getting to the same solution, I suppose.
Whoa.
Oh, there it goes. And In the case of the kudu, it is a ruminant, it re-chews its food, and in the case of the scrub hare, as many of you will know, it does re-chew its food as well, but not through rumination, through coprophagy, where it must ingest its own fecal pellets and redigest them. I'm not sure which strategy is less appealing than the other, the strategy of vomiting into one's mouth so that you can rechew your food, or the strategy of having to take it out the other end and rechew it. Both, to me, are extremely distasteful, and I'm very pleased that I don't have to engage in either, like the animal that Jamie is going to show you now.
Well, we like to script our safaris as much as possible, and that of course involves much coordination between the bushwalk team and the vehicles. I've obviously completely planned that while James was showing you some kudu dung, we just happened upon some kudu. There you go. You have seen the end result of what they are currently doing right at this moment. They are standing ruminating. Sitting back, enjoying a Sunday morning, just chewing the cud. I was once asked, it is hilarious to stare at it for a while. It's actually quite hypnotizing. There goes the bolus. Now wait for it, it's coming back up. Bloop, bloop. There you go. It does get the more amusing the more you watch it. I can't speak. Next one. Chew that cud properly. Now, I said that they're sitting back and relaxing. Studies have actually shown that their brain waves imitate those of sleep. So while they're ruminating, it gives them a chance to rest up a little bit. I remember what I was going to say. I was once asked if buffalo, when they're chewing the cud this way, will always... Bloop, wait for it. Bloop. And back up again. I was once asked if the jaws always move in the same direction, or if they alternate every now and again. I thought it was a brilliant question, because it's something that I've never thought about watching, but you know I can never remember the answer. I think we agreed that they do occasionally change direction and chew with their jaw moving in the opposite direction. In this case, the kudu's lower jaw is moving in a sort of a anti-clockwise motion. Now, you would have seen the byproducts of this process. Alarm says that it is yo-yo food. It is, of course, the best way to go about this whole digesting plant matter, or at least getting the most out of the plant matter. First it is eaten, then it goes into one stomach, or one stomach chamber, then it forms a bolus, and then it is brought back up at an appropriate moment. It is not vomiting, really. It is ruminating. So it doesn't count as one of those distasteful processes that James mentioned earlier. There's actual deliberate muscle contractions involved there, whereas vomiting tends to be a somewhat uncontrollable act. There's an oxpecker. Whoop, bloop. Has to go with the sound effect. Bloop. Now, Barbara, you want to know how many times the kudu brings up its food before discarding it. Well, essentially what's happening is in that first stomach chamber, there are multiple boluses. So there's a ruminant we think of it as having 4 stomachs. It's basically 4 separate areas that the food goes into. Now, the first one is where the food goes in first, because that's generally what the word first suggests. So it will go into the first stomach, then the bolus will be brought up, it will chew that bolus, and then from there it will swallow it again, but it will go to a separate stomach, or separate stomach chamber. So it only really, I mean, unless it's really struggling with that particular bolus, it only really chews one bolus once before sending it on its way through the rest of the digestive tract. But as to how many boluses they can have at any one time, I have absolutely no idea. Not a clue, I'm afraid. I have never thought about it. Another very good question. Lots of kudu. Many kudu. A process, of course, that allows the lost my train of thought. Allows the food to be digested properly, just in case we haven't emphasized often enough the differences between ruminants and then something like a zebra, which is a hind gut fermenter and doesn't re-chew its food. I always think it's even funnier when you watch a giraffe bring up a bolus of food, because it's got so far to travel. It's quite the process. So now what the one in front is going to do is now probably going to actively eat. Perhaps it's chewed up all its boluses and re-chewed, and now it's going to go in search of a way of filling that first stomach once again. FRGG2002, thank you for that early morning brain exercise. You want to know why the females are all alone. So that's very typical of the herd structure of a kudu. You'll find that there's usually a group of females, sometimes some young males, and there's a waterbuck. They're not all alone. They've got their friend over for dinner, or for brunch, I suppose. And from there, what you'll find is that there are bachelor herds or groups of males. They might occasionally associate with the females, but kudus don't have a harem or anything like that. So they don't have a collection of females. During the breeding season, obviously you will find that the males are more frequently with the females, because of course they're fighting for access to mate with them. But otherwise the females are not alone. It is very common to see different species of antelope together, particularly where you've got a herd and then a lone bachelor, whether it is a male wildebeest or a male waterbuck, whatever it happens to be. And essentially he's there purely because it's safety in numbers. So rather than being on his own, he'd rather have some company, extra ears and eyes to spot potential predators. And in the case of the kudu, really their main predator is going to be a pride of lions. So both for kudu and for waterbuck, leopards might take young females. I'm trying to keep my head down so that I don't lose my hat, because that's where my microphone lives. It would be disastrous. And it's already left my head a few times this morning. Okay, I'm going to chance it. I'm going to reposition so we... Oh no, hold on, the waterbuck's actually moving behind the females. No, he's gone even further behind the trees. That's all gone very well. I'm going to continue on my search for Tundi so that we can have the full family. The father, the son, and the angry sister. Off we go back to Tristan, who has the father.
Well, Jamie, I thought because it was Sunday you were about to deliver a sermon with the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit or something like that. That's kind of how it felt like it was going to go. But I was hoping kind of that Tanya and Tlalamba would arrive here. Wouldn't it be nice if we had all four of them together in one little family get-together and have them all kind of spread out around here? I don't think it's going to happen because, well, everybody seems as though they are being very lethargic, and I would imagine that Tanya and Tlalamba are also reveling in a bit of sunshine and trying to stay out of this horrid wind that is blowing today. Tingana was delightful in his kind of dominant male self is that the only movement that I've seen him really do today, besides look around a little bit, he just stood up about 5 minutes ago, and I'm very thankful that luckily we are positioned where we are, because he lifted his tail and began to just urinate out of the top of the tree all over the impala carcass, and with the way that the wind was howling, it spread out in a stream that almost ended up hitting where Hosanna is lying down. Now that's not a very, it's not close to where Tingana is, but because of the wind there was just urine being sprayed everywhere all over this place, and luckily the wind is not quite blowing towards us, otherwise I think we might have just got a face full of Tingana's pee. But it stinks like popcorn at the moment everywhere because I think it's just sprayed all over the place, and so there's just this kind of smell of it in all directions at the moment. But I'm quite glad that it didn't hit us. I don't think a bit of pee from a leopard would have been that pleasant. But it was quite funny to actually see. It was just kind of this golden stream just being blown around by the wind and it's kind of all over the place. And if you look where he is now, so since if we come out, I'll show you exactly how far he projectile peed this morning. So that's where he is up in the tree. Now if we come down from the tree itself and come down to where I am, you'll see that there's a fallen over stump here. Now that is where the pee was ending up. That is a long way away from the tree. That stump over there got a kind of a fair deal of it. It all went over that, and then the surrounding area around there was covered in urine. And if you come a little bit to the left of that, you'll see where Hosanna is. So poor Hosanna was almost peed on by his dad. If not the kind of insult of stealing his food, he almost got urinated on too, which would have been the ultimate insult. Yes, Tim, a golden shower is not exactly something that I'm sure Hosanna wants at all. I doubt that he wants to be peed on by his dad. I'm pretty sure he would be very upset by it. He's not like a hyena that just will sit there. I've seen hyenas get peed on more times than I can even tell you. And they never look like they really care. They just kind of, it hits them and they're just like, oh, well, carry on looking around for food and kind of all kinds of other things. I do think a hyena would probably not be very impressed if it got pooed on, though, because I have seen both Hosanna and Tingana offload while in a tree, and normally after eating a carcass what they defecate is not pleasant. It's almost like a tar that comes out of them, and so I'm pretty sure hyenas would take offense to that. I certainly think I would take offense to being pooped on by a leopard. I don't think it would be a very fun time at all, and that's why you do not really park underneath them, because you never know when they're going to pee or poo out of a tree, and you, like I say, certainly do not want that to be landing on you. A carnivore's scat is, well, quite something. It smells, it's obviously full of bacteria that you don't want on you, and so you would try and avoid it at all costs. Now poor Hosanna, he's still just sitting trying to absorb some sunshine and stay warm. Oh, there's another leopard, Tundi's here. So Tundi's also here. There's 3 leopards here. Look at that. Now she's also arrived. Can you believe it? We were talking about her coming here and she's here. That's absolutely incredible. Now, Hosanna hasn't seen her yet. This is ridiculous. I don't see any sign of Kalamba either at the moment, but we definitely have 3 different leopards. This is insane. What are the chances that the whole kind of royal family is all here at once? She's looking behind her. I don't see little Kalamba anywhere here, but you never know. She might make an appearance too. There she comes walking in. Hosanna hasn't seen her yet. Now I'm pretty sure we're going to try and take this to a wider group of people. I also think maybe Jamie must start heading in this direction in case they all start to separate out. Well, welcome everybody to a sunny, cold, blustery South Africa. As you can see, we've got 2 leopards here that are side by side. Now, we've got Tundi, female leopard at the back. She's an older, sort of 12-year-old female, and in front of her is a young male called Hosanna. Now, these 2 are related. This is her, well, Hosanna's older sister by a long way. He's only about 2 years, 8 months. You can see she's a bit grumpy with him, and he's only about, oh, and she's about 12 years. So there's a big age difference between the 2 of them. There's a little bit of growling going on, and the reason why that she's here is I think she's smelt that there's a kill in the air, and you can see, look at how she's being aggressive towards him. and she's almost chasing him away. Now, up in the tree, can you believe it, is a third leopard. So there is a big male leopard up in the tree. So we don't have one or two, we've got 3 different leopards here, and that male up there is the father of Hosanna, as well as the mating partner for Thandi, and has produced his current cub, which is absolutely insane. Now, I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Tristan. On camera I've got Senzo, and it is a warm welcome to all of you. Remember that you can interact with us, and you can do so by posting all of your question and comments in the comment section below. But this is just absolutely insane. We've been sitting here all morning, and there's been dozy leopards that haven't really been doing anything. They've all been kind of sleeping, and now all of a sudden we've got this female that's come in, and I wonder how this is going to kind of influence the behavior of the 2 males. Mark, you say this is amazing. It is absolutely incredible. I'm really kind of surprised that we've managed to get all 3 of them together. It's the first time that I've seen all 3 together on a drive. They have been seen together at a camera that we have set up at a pan, and even the little cub for Thandi, because she has a cub at the moment, was also in this area, and was also in the area with them. So this is the first time they're on a drive that we've had all 3 together, and it's pretty ridiculous. We've got a female leopard on our left, a male leopard on my right, and another male leopard in the tree. So it really is just quite ridiculous. I can also see in the distance, it looks like maybe a hyena is starting to come this way, but it's very far at the moment, so we'll wait and see if it gets a little bit closer. But I'm completely intrigued by the sort of interactions between these guys at the moment. You know, you would think that this big dominant male would be quite aggressive with the young male when there's a female around, but you can see he's just intrigued with his food and is hoping to keep his food, and is lying up in the tree itself with the carcass, and he's going to stay up there, and then he's going to just leave these 2 to figure out exactly what they're doing. What's also interesting is that the female leopard, Thandi, she's starting to smell exactly where Hosanna was lying. So you can see he's kind of creeping along, and she's sniffing where he was lying. She's trying to work out exactly who this is, whether or not it's a big male, if it's a threat possibly towards her cub, or if it's just a male that she knows. And she will know him. She's been near him more than once. You can see she's a bit feisty with him though. Look, typical Thandi, she can be quite grumpy when she wants to be. Now, I can't see Hosanna. He's right in front of the car at the moment. Oh, there he is. I can just see his spots to the kind of front of the car. Tingana is completely unfazed, and here comes the hyena as well. So you see up the road there's a hyena that's coming towards us too. So we've now got another predator entering the fray, and it's probably following its nose. It's very windy today, and so the scent of this kill will be being blown all over the place, and that's why you're getting these kind of predators all coming in. Now, how this all kind of came about, because it's absolute kind of chaos with all these leopards, is that Hosanna, the young male, killed this impala not last night, the night before, and he kind of had it up in the tree. This morning we came along, and his dad had stolen it away, given that Tingana, who's the one in the tree, is a much bigger, stronger, bulkier leopard. Hosanna would have had to give way to his dad and allow him to feed, and I would imagine then the smell of this carcass, as well as the urine that has been defecated here by these leopards, will have attracted this female into the area, and she would have come in to kind of see what's going on, and that's why she's moved here. And she's then bumped into the young male, who she's not really that fond of, because remember that he can be a little bit of a threat towards her cub. Now, I'm not sure if her cub is with her at the moment. Jamie this morning, who's one of our other presenters that we have out here, she said that she had tracks for both Thandi and the cub together, and so maybe the cub is also somewhere around here. No, so she mistaked the cub track for a honey, but so the cub track wasn't with Thandi. But it's amazing that they are kind of all together like this. Really is quite incredible that we've got 3 different leopards together. This is not an everyday occurrence. We definitely do not get this many leopards kind of interacting. Often everyone talks about leopards being sort of loners and not moving around too much, whereas here you can see they kind of all together. Now, Sarah, you asking if you can still hear Thandi growling and snarling? Yes, we can. Now, our hyena is right here as well. So not only do we, there it comes, it's just coming in now. So we're going to have hyena, and it's going to come towards Thandi, and she's not going to be very impressed now to be boxed in between a leopard and a hyena. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move back slightly and just give some space. Let me just kind of move back a little bit, because I want her to be able to have a bit of space. There we go. So she's got space now. The hyena can move and she can kind of move around where she wants to. You can see where Hosanna is. He's kind of backing off a little bit because now he's not only got a female leopard to deal with, he's now got a hyena as well. So there he goes. You can see he's passing by in front of Thandi. Look at that. Isn't that incredible? Look at them side by side. There goes the hyena. The hyena's also run off. This is ridiculous. How amazing is this? Now you'll see they'll start to salivate quite a bit. Now, I believe a lot of you are saying that this is just fantastic. Well, it's ridiculous. Very, very seldom are you going to see that. Now you'll see the salivating that's happening. All three of these leopards probably will start to salivate. When they start to kind of interact with one another, this is what happens. Now, I wonder if... Now, where's Hosanna off to? You can see, look at the way Thandi's just shadowing him. This is the way that Thandi came from. So I wonder if maybe, just maybe, her cub is not here, because the way she's kind of going around, sort of shadowing his area, she's now just looking up at Tingana. I wonder if she's not trying to protect where her cub is. Thandi, what are you doing? No, now she's going back towards where Tingana is, sniffing around a little bit as well. What are you doing, Thandi? I'm going to bite some grass now. Now that I've growled and hissed at everybody, now I'm going to bite grass and just make sure that I'm a little bit playful. What are you doing, girl? Now you can see, even though she was smaller than Hosanna, did you see how her aggression will often protect her and her cub? She really can be quite kind of abusive. Look, there she goes now. She's thinking, imagine wondering where this young male is off to. But this is just absolutely insane. To think that, like I say, that we've got 3 leopards is absolutely ridiculous. Wow. What an insane morning we're having. You can see she's just behind the car now, and we can't really move too much because of where she's lying. So I don't know where Hosanna is. He's at the base of a tree kind of behind us as well. No, still no sign of the cub either. I think he's wondering what's going on this morning. Why is everybody kind of going after me and stealing my kills? Shame, boy. It's been a tough morning for you. Now, Ellen, would Thandi actually attack Hosanna? I think if he got too close to Tlalamba and was aggressive towards Tlalamba, then yes. Now, for those of you who don't know who Tlalamba is, that is the cub of Thandi. She's about a sort of almost a year-old female. And so, you know, if he got too close and was aggressive towards that cub, then Thandi would attack him. But she's very wary of going physical with him because he's bigger than her already. Even though he's a young boy and he's not an established dominant male, he's still going to be able to do some damage to her. And you can see the size difference when they were walking side by side, that he's already much bulkier than what she is. There he goes, he's just drifting off, and so is she. Now I'm going to try and just turn around quickly and see if we can just get into a slightly better position. Tingana, meanwhile, the leopard up in the tree, is still just staking it absolutely easy. He's not moving at all at the moment. He's just kind of watching all of this unfolding and probably thinking, I'm glad it's not me being shouted at by Thandi and getting snarled at and kind of getting all of these growls and hisses that are taking place. But there we go. That's a bit better. Now we can actually see. We'll notice that there is another vehicle with us here. It's obviously in an area where there is tourism that takes place, and so people do come out from all over the world to be able to see these animals. But how special a sighting is this? Absolutely ridiculous. We were sitting just now talking about this. We were saying that, you know, wouldn't it be incredible if Thandi arrived to join Hosanna and Tingana? And it's kind of the family that is around this area. Both sort of Thandi and Hosanna have the same mother, and obviously, you know, Tingana is involved in all of this by being the father of Hosanna as well as the father of Thandi's current cub. So it's kind of what we know call the royal family, and we try and kind of often refer to them as that. And so the little prince is Hosanna, this is the queen, and in the tree behind us is the duke. Now I'm just going to reposition again because I want to try and see if we can get a slightly different shot. I also think that maybe the cub is here. Cindy, the reason why Thandi's following Hosanna is, one, to try and kind of just probably check who he is and make sure that she knows exactly which leopard that she's dealing with. Secondly, if he's moving anywhere towards where she potentially has her cub hidden, well, that means that the cub could potentially be in danger. And so she's just shadowing him to make sure that he is always kind of kept at bay. Look, you see she's trotting after him now, so when he moves, she moves, and that's kind of the way that she does things. So she's basically kind of telling him, don't go that way, I'm going to cut you off every time you move in that direction. And could very well be because, can you hear that? They're growling and hissing. I'm just going to try and reposition again. So Tandi's being very grumpy with him. Now, I don't know where. There's Hosana. Hosana's on his back. He's being submissive now. So this is kind of submissive behavior. Louis, you say this is the greatest experience of your life. Well, I'm glad, Louis, that you're part of this epicness that we are seeing unfold here, and that you are thoroughly enjoying this. It really is one of those things that, you know, is not very well documented, is the lives of and the interactions between leopards. Here in the Sabi Sands, we're very lucky that we get to see leopards as often as what we do. And they are far more social than people think. Everyone always calls them the loner cat, but we often get these kind of interactions of maybe one leopard with another, but to get all three together is quite rare. So we're very, very fortunate, and I'm glad, like I say, that you've been able to join us for all of this. Now you'll see that posturing that Hosana's doing at the moment is basically him trying to tell Tandi to sort of back off a little bit. He's just saying to her, I'm not fighting you, I'm not here to try and dominate you, you know, I'm just going to roll on my back. And that's a submissive posture that he is taking at the moment to just try and show her that, you know, he's not being aggressive towards her in any way. She, you can see now, is also going to calm down a little bit. When he moves and he sits up like that, then she gets a bit more aggressive. But if you look at that picture there, look at the size of his head and neck area compared to hers already. He's much larger. Even though he's not a fully grown male leopard, his size is much, much bigger than hers already. But that doesn't deter her from being super aggressive towards him and trying to show that she can dominate him, which is really quite something. Now there goes Hosana. He's kind of almost as if to say, please leave me alone, stop following me around, I don't want to have anything to do with you. Little growl and little sort of snarl. Now these two have got a lot of history. He followed her around for quite some time when he was about a year old, and he tried to kind of scavenge kills of her. He then started to commit kills of his own, and she actually stole a few of his kills and took them, and now he's kind of worked out that he can actually sort of take from her, and so they have a little bit of kind of competition from time to time. Now what's interesting is he's walked around our car going back towards the kill, but if you look at Tandi now, look, she's far more relaxed and is not following him nearly as much, and I think that's because her cub is somewhere on this side. So what she's just done is she's completely blocked him from moving in this direction, and now that she's happy that she's between maybe where he is and where the cub is, she'll calm down and relax a little bit and just sit in the sunshine and kind of watch where he goes. So I think her cub must be here as well. So there's always a potential for a fourth leopard actually to come out, which is quite something. But I don't know where he's gone now. He's just kind of sniffing around where she was sitting just now, is Hosana. Tingana, like I say, is still up in the tree just protecting the kill that he's got up there, and is not really fussed by all of this shenanigan behavior that's going on down at the bottom. The thing is though, is we're not seeing Tandi calling, so if the cub was very close and she was comfortable with bringing it out, she would be chuffing and calling, and the cub would have heard all these growls and these kind of things and would have trotted off. It wouldn't have come close if it knew that there was a danger and knew mom was being aggressive towards others. Then you would have found that, you know, she would have kind of, well, the little cub would have tried to run away and just sort of hide. Shailene, yes, poor Sana, he does have a bit of a tough time at the moment, and being a young male, that's the way it goes. You know, you've got to kind of compete with the bigger males that will steal your kills, and he's very lucky that Tingana is as tolerant as he is of Hosana and doesn't chase Hosana away more, and, you know, often just steals the odd meal from him. But he also has to deal with his grumpy older sister in the form of Tandi, who is very much like this with a lot of animals, not just, you know, leopards. she can often be quite growly and hissy at everything that kind of moves around here, birds and even things like hyenas. So, you know, it just depends. But anyway, that was absolutely epic. We've just had the most insane sighting. To see these three cats together is not something that you're going to see every day. We have been spoiled beyond belief to be able to see this. So very, very special. On that note, though, we are going to say goodbye to all of you. I hope that you had a wonderful time with us. And if anything else decides to pop out or anything else happens, we certainly will go live again. But if you do want to see how this kind of goes for the rest of the morning, remember you can Google SafariLive and join us for our interactive safari that we host twice a day. Good, but from Senzo and myself, it's been an absolute pleasure. We'll see you all soon. Alright, well, wasn't that just quite something? We thought she might arrive, and, well, we hoped she might arrive, and she did, which was very, very cool. I wonder if Claramba's not here. I think she probably is somewhere in this general vicinity, given that the way Tandi's kind of behavior was to Hosana, to kind of growl at him and stop him. As soon as he went back towards where Tingana was, she was far more relaxed, and you can see now she's just kind of sitting and taking it far easier and not really as sort of angry about the whole situation. But ridiculous. To get 3 leopards in one sighting is just unbelievable, especially because they're all kind of, I suppose Hosana's a sub-adult in some respects, but they're all big leopards. You know, it's not like we've got a female and her cub only, but we've got kind of all of them sort of hanging around. Now, I'm pretty sure that we're going to see a mass kind of distribution from this carcass during the course of today. I don't think all 3 of them will be here this afternoon. I'm pretty sure we'll find 1 or 2 of them is going to move. Now, I do also apologize if you're hearing me sniff. It is seriously cold on this road. The wind is funneling straight up this road, and it is absolutely freezing, so I've got a little bit of the sniffles, I'm afraid. I do apologize about it. Now, I believe a lot of you are saying that I've got a lot of leopard luck, and I suppose I do. I mean, I can't complain about how much leopard luck I get. The frequency of kind of sightings that I've had over the last year and a bit of kind of multiple leopards together has actually been a bit scary, to be honest. So I get lucky in many respects, and I mean, I suppose it's, you know, it's one of those things. It's not like it's anything that I do. It just, there's a lot of luck that's involved, and get these kind of crazy sightings where we get multiple kind of leopards in one. And, you know, I suppose it's also because we look for, well, I try and spend as much time as I can with leopards, and maybe that's part of the reason why we get to see these crazy things. But there you go, Tandi's up. She's sniffing exactly where Hosana was kind of marking just now, and so I'm pretty sure she's just trying to work out exactly who he is and whether he's an important part of this kind of ecosystem for her. Is he a threat to her cub? Is he a potential mate that in the future? Obviously, she's going to be starting to come into estrus cycles fairly soon. We know with Tamba, Tandi was already starting to mate when Tamba was around sort of 12 months old, and so you never know, she might be starting to come into an estrus again, and that's why she's kind of moved through here. But she's just sitting and still sort of giving a bit of a growl. I don't know where Hosana's gone. I actually can't see him anymore. Oh, there he is. I think he's sitting behind the tree. Yes, there he goes. He's moving around, and so while they kind of all establish where they want to park off and start to watch each other from, let's send you across to Jamie and ask what her opinion is.
My opinion. I have a lot of opinions. Right now, I don't think I should voice them. I can't believe that Tandi pitched up. I can. I'm not in any way surprised. I'm just slightly hurt, Tandi. Oh, how's that? Oh, here we go. I did actually think that something like that was going to happen. And you know what the funny thing is Tristan so kindly this morning said to me, are you sure you don't want to go and sit with Hosana? And I said no, because I wanted to rush to the hyena den. So I'm happy for Tristan. It's an awesome leopard sighting. What I'm going to do, as enthralling as these impala are, I think they probably pale slightly in comparison to what you've just witnessed. Right, off to Tristan.
Well, this is just ridiculous. Hosana's just come up. He kind of stalked towards Thandi with a bit more intent than normal. He's now gotten very close to where Thandi is, and Thandi is being very kind of aggressive towards him and just telling him almost to back off. Now you see, now he's being submissive. That rolling around that you're seeing is typical submissive behavior when he does that. So he's almost, I think, wants to play rather than he wants to be aggressive to her, but she is not happy about him approaching her at all. She was quite, you can actually hear her. I don't know if it's clear over the wind, but there's this low growl that's coming from Thandi. She's not impressed with this sort of closeness and proximity of Hosana. This is just insane. What are you doing, Hosana? You can't play. She will not play with you. This is insane. So, Eggsy in Final Control says that Hosana wants to borrow money from his older sister. No, well, Eggsy, he's a successful entrepreneur now. He's got a thriving business. It's Kevin, you said that, and Eggsy, you were just reading it. Okay, well, sorry about that. But Kevin, I think, no, he doesn't have to worry about money, but he's got his own successful business. I think he's he just wants to try and mend the bond between the family, but his older sister is still holding a grudge for his success in life. But look at this. This is ridiculous. She is not happy. Look at that tail. We often talk about signs of when a leopard is not comfortable with our presence, and Thandi is actually showing those signs now. She's being very, very aggressive about this whole thing. She's showing her displeasure. You can hear her in the background, actually. Now watch when her tail is moving, and you'll find that when a leopard is angry, that tail flicks like that, and the ears flattened against the head, and they try then make these sounds. What's going on here? Now that is Hosana stamping himself over Thandi, saying, enough of this, I'm not taking your nonsense anymore. Look at that. They are head to head. Now he's backing off now. He's made his intentions very clear. He has now basically told Thandi, I'm not standing for your nonsense. You can stop this and stop growling at me, and he has shown that he is the bigger of the two leopards. Now it's going to be interesting to see Thandi's reaction. She almost looks a little bit gobsmacked by the fact that he's actually charged at her. Now all of the interactions we've seen between these two, Thandi has dominated the kind of confrontation, whereas now Hosana has just sent a very clear message. He's just said, I've had enough of you, stop growling at me, stop being ugly to me, and is kind of charged at her, and you can see she's just kind of watching him now, almost as if to say, okay, I get that you're not impressed by my nonsense. Hosana, you're growing up, boy. You're starting to behave a lot more like a big male than a young kind of pretender. Sure, I have. So yes, sorry, can you repeat the name? Because I got the comment, but not the name. Is it Gina? Tina, no, that's it. So Tina, you say she's pouting now. Yes, she's got her sulk face on now. She didn't expect that, I don't think. She's a bit surprised, much like I am. I must be honest there, for a second I thought maybe Hosana was going to actually come to blows with her, because the way he leapt in there was as if to say, you know, I'm starting to lose my temper with you a little bit. Stop this nonsense. I know I'm not the big male around here, but there's no reason to treat me like that. And you can see she's a little bit kind of, I think, perplexed by his behavior, and as if to say, you know, what is going on here? Why is all of a sudden this leopard coming at me like he's never done before? But either way, that was a big moment for Hosana, because he stood up to her. What's interesting about this is Tingana's just watching it. He hasn't come down and intervened at all. Oregon Way, no. So Tingana is not here to protect Thandi at all. He is not doesn't work like that. If this was lions, yes, then you would find a big male lion would probably get involved. But in the leopard structure and leopard society, it's very much a loner thing, and he's only there to try and kind of mate with females, as well as to be able to find food. And so in this instance, he knows if he comes down the tree, one of these two leopards is going to go up and get the food that he's sitting on. So he doesn't want to lose his food to anybody, so he's rather going to sit up there, let these two fight it out and establish what they want. She's not in an estrus cycle, which means he's not losing out on mating rights, and so he's kind of able to just sit there. Now what we've also got is two African hawk eagles that are also interacting as they kind of come over. This is crazy. They're calling and kind of going at one another, and they sort of lock talons just now as well, which is quite cool. Look at that. So it seems as though everything is all just coming towards Gari Katla, and there they go. Just want to see if they'll call again. There's actually 3 of them, so there's 3 of them, 3 leopards and 3 African hawk eagles, all in the same sighting, which is pretty insane. It's maybe why there was a bit of dive bombing happening, is that they were going after one another. But there's Tandi, she's resting. It seems as though we've gone into a bit of a hiatus now. Everybody's fairly relaxed. Tingana's kind of just on his kill. Hosana's facing the opposite way, and well, Tandi, she definitely has got her party face on. She is not impressed by what just happened. Did your younger brother just teach you a lesson, Tandi? Yes, I think that's exactly what's just happened. Amazing though, her ability to stand up to these males is always is something that has made me kind of always have a very soft spot for Tandi. She has got attitude and feistiness more than most leopards, and her kind of, even in that situation where Hosana came in and sort of at her, she still didn't turn and run. She stood up to him and snarled and hissed and kind of tried to show how brave she was. It was really quite something to kind of see. She's an incredible kind of leopard in many respects. Right, now while there's a hiatus in the drama, let's send you across to more drama, who is James Henry, really.
Well, the only drama you're going to get from me is, well, rank jealousy. I am not gracious like Jamie, who will say that she's so happy for Tristan and smile sweetly into the camera and move on. I am not going to say that. I'm just going to say that I'm jealous, and that I don't appreciate the fact that I have got only the tree that Tingana is sitting in. Here we go. This is the tree that Tingana is sitting in. That's the only link that I have to that spectacular leopard sighting. It is a saffron tree, and you can see its branches are very uncomfortable, are they not? Not nearly as uncomfortable as walking around while your colleague has got all of the leopards on the reserve in one sighting, along with 3 African hawk eagles. Now, if you come over here, Sebastian, we're going to entertain our viewers far more than Tristan has. I'll show you why. Because we have got a millipede. Look at this. Come over here, Sebastian, please. Oh, you can't, can you? Because your aerial won't fit under the tree. Oh. How disappointing. Well, it was going to be the most amazing millipede sighting you'd ever had. This millipede is eating a gymnogene. It's unbelievable. It's eating 3 gymnogene chicks. It's not really. It's actually just sort of sitting here. There we go. A very large millipede. Now, I suppose there must be some people in the world who'd find that just as entertaining as 3 leopards in one sighting. They'd probably be in a minority. I would suspect probably less than 0.0001% of people watching the show would find that millipede as entertaining as 3 leopards having a fight. But, you know, we still have to show you all aspects of the wilderness. Jamie's just said that she's happy to pick me up and we can go home for an early breakfast. Kara, no, I don't have a kill in this tree like Tingana has a kill in his tree. All I have is myself and a millipede and a few leaves. I think I'm going to sit here and sulk for the rest of the morning. It is a very beautiful tree, the Transvaal saffron, Eleodendron transvaalensis, but it really is very uncomfortable for someone like Tingana to be sitting in and eating from. I imagine that he'll have a word with Hosana after the sighting and say to him, please next time I come for dinner, could you perhaps set a slightly more comfortable table? Because it's quite spiky, and there are no long, smooth limbs like there are on a marula tree. Anyway, the millipedes are just coming out now, and what's interesting about that particular millipede over there is that it's very large. Now, I don't know how long millipedes live for, but I can tell you it's very obviously more than a year, because that thing has obviously just emerged from somewhere where it's been hiding. When they're born, they're tiny little things, little white things, and then they turn dark, and they get bigger and bigger and bigger, and then they reach about that sort of size is about maximum for a millipede out here, and it's probably about 5 inches long. It's quite an impressive beast. The good news, you want to know if I can count the legs? I certainly can count the legs, but I'm not going to. You can, though. You might like to count all of the legs there. There are certainly hundreds of them. There are not thousands, so why it is called 1,000-foot, I'm not sure. And a centipede, which means 100-foot, has tens of legs. So really it should be called a decipede, and this one should be called a centipede, but it is not. Biologists sometimes like to be hyperbolic in their taxonomic terms. Let me say that again, I quite like it. Biologists sometimes like to be hyperbolic in their taxonomic terms. Right, we're now not going to go across to Tristan because he's had enough of the limelight, and so we're going to go across to Jamie Patterson, the ultimately gracious.
Oof, I'm trying to be ultimately gracious. Tristan, I see your 3 leopards and 3 fighting hawk eagles, and I raise you a herd of impala and some zebra, which is basically like bluffing in poker. I know it's still nice to see some zebra. We don't often see them on Djuma at the moment. There's not the best grazing opportunities for them, so they've only recently started returning. Oh, that one's got a stumpy tail. It's missing the tip of its tail. Most likely, thanks. Yes, definitely cursed. I think we should draw in a wider audience quickly. Go live now. Please don't. I don't know what I would say. Though that zebra probably lost the tip of its tail during a fight with another zebra. It is a male. It is the stallion of the herd. So in the past he has had to fight fiercely for his right to look after his harem. There's one of his progeny in front of the female there. A zebra foal of a couple of months. Kurt says, zebras have thick bottoms. They do indeed, and do not mock the thick bottom. Us of the thick-bottomed kind appreciate... I don't know where I was going with that. All the better to run with, Kurt. All the better to run with. Powerful muscles that make a zebra... or give zebra the ability to accelerate at an astounding rate, going from 0 to about probably close on 35 miles per hour of their top speed, and they can reach that top speed in 2 or 3 full strides. So very powerful muscles. It of course also gives them the ability to kick powerfully. I need to think of a word other than the word powerful. They of course also bite quite powerfully. Aha. They are also actually have thick bellies. The reason that they have thick bellies is because due to their digestive process, they are rather gassy individuals. So right up there with the distasteful bodily functions that James was talking about earlier. They do produce vast amounts of gases, or at least the bacteria in their intestines. That is why even a malnourished zebra will have a very round belly. This is also one of the biggest impala herds that I've seen on Djuma, and you'll notice that some of the females are also quite round around the middle. That is because they are all heavily pregnant, or almost all of them are heavily pregnant. The only exceptions are, well, those males, they're not pregnant, and the young females that were born last year, who weren't ready to mate when breeding season came around. There we go, there's some adult females wandering at the back. I'm excited! I'm excited to see little impala lambs wandering about. We saw them lots in the Mara, but there's no set breeding season for the impala there, so you don't get the nursery groups in the same way that you do out here. Lovely. I love Snacks. I love Snacks too. I love Snacks was wondering if the zebra could beat Seabiscuit in a race, and the answer to that is no. I don't think so at all. That would have completely ruined the ending of the story of Seabiscuit. A zebra, while very fast, it's not in the same way that we have bred racehorses for their ability to race and run very fast. They tend to be a little bit taller than zebra as well. They take longer strides. But now, if you were to take Seabiscuit and put Seabiscuit right here in the middle of Djuma, first of all, Seabiscuit would probably be eaten by a lion, because Seabiscuit wouldn't know all about lions and predators and those sorts of things, although it's amazing how far instinct stretches. But running through this terrain, through the bushes, I think Seabiscuit would lose to a zebra, hands down, or hooves down, depending upon how you look at it. The zebra would quite simply be streaks ahead. Basically what we're looking at is a combination of Racing Stripes and Seabiscuit in one wholesome family movie. And when you've finished watching it, you can go off to Hasana's for some family dining, joined by the father, the son, and the angry sister. We're pulling all the narratives together neatly here into one ridiculous train of thought. The other thing, of course, about zebra is that their back structures are not designed to be ridden. Gee, Scott, would a topi beat a Seabiscuit? Topi, of course, being a subspecies of the tsesebe, which has the record as the fastest antelope out here. Yes, I think that in a straight line, if you put a topi on a racetrack, it would stand and stare at you and probably look for some sort of high ground to go and stand on. So I don't know how you would get a topi to run along down a racetrack without it veering off wildly and probably terrifying the crowds, and send fancy hats flying in every direction as the topi bolted through those watching. Thank you, Dave. What did you find on your hat? That is marvelous. Thank you so much. You've saved me from the discussion of topi and the Seabiscuit. Dave has found something on his hat. Now, you would be forgiven for thinking that it is in fact a stick that Dave has found on his hat. It is not a stick, it is an inchworm. And in this case, it is a very well-behaved inchworm because it is roughly the size of an inch. Hello, what are you doing on Dave's hat? There you go. Oh, shame. The wind's so strong, it's barely clinging on. It must have fallen off one of the trees or come down off one of the trees onto Dave's hat while we were driving, and this poor thing has been clinging on for dear life. Who knows when it found its way on here. And if we have a look, if we really wanted to, sorry Dave, yes, it inched its way on, came within an inch of its life there. It is so terrified by this whole process that it is actually in the process of defecating on Dave's hat. Look at that, Dave. Aren't you lucky? It's meant to be good luck when birds defecate on you, apparently, I've heard. I've always thought of it purely as bad luck, especially if it's a vulture. I'm not sure what sort of luck what sort of luck one has when an inchworm does it. Thank you for that, Dave. Do you want your hat back with the inchworm on it, or would you like me to remove our guest? No, Dave's happy to have his hat back with the inchworm. We'll take it back to camp and return it from whence it came. I'm sure you'll all be greatly relieved to hear that we are in fact going to return you to the company of Tristan and his 3 leopards.
Well, yes, chaos. It's been a ridiculous kind of sort of ramp up of our morning. It's, you know, to have 2 leopards together. And I was actually thinking just now to myself, before Tundi even arrived, is that it's amazing how we've just become so used to the fact that we see 2 leopards together, that it's Tingana and Hosanna, and we're just like, well, it's the norm, you know, we didn't really make too much of a fuss about it. And it's very special to be able to see not more than 1 male leopard in the same kind of area, and to kind of have the 2 of them chilling out was very, very cool. And, you know, it's an epic way to spend a morning. But then to have Tundi arrive, and what we just witnessed was just insane. The fact that the 2 of them were so kind of sort of interactive with one another was really quite something. Tundi is still sitting on my right, still looking quite indignant at the fact that she got charged at, and she's slowly starting to kind of get a bit sleepy. So Tingana's fallen asleep once again on his kill. Hosanna's passed out in the shade, and now even Tundi is starting to look as though she's getting a little kind of nappy as well. So she might see her also just flop down shortly, and there'll be a hiatus in the activity. But I don't think it will stop here. I'm pretty sure that we're going to see them kind of keep on interacting. Eventually, though, there will be a split out. By this afternoon, I would be very surprised if all 3 of these leopards were still sitting in the exact same place that they are now. I'm 99% sure that all 3 of them are going to end up kind of distributing away from this particular spot. And you might find that 1 is left on the carcass, and the rest kind of move off and go and do their own thing. Particularly Tundi, I highly doubt she's going to stick around here for too long, unless of course she's starting to come into an estrus cycle. If that's the case, well, then she might stick around for a while, and she might end up kind of hanging about these 2 boys, and then kind of taking off with Tingana once he's finished feeding. But I don't think that's the case. I mean, her reactions and her way of doing things isn't just more trying to kind of make sure that Tlalamba is safe, and then also to defend herself in many respects as well. Love, hope, faith. When Tingana goes for water, Tingana's not going to go for water, I'm afraid, not until such time as that whole meal is finished, because he knows now as soon as he leaves that either one of these leopards are going to shoot up that tree and go and feed off that carcass. And so that means that they're going to try and avoid, well, he's going to avoid that situation, and so he'll just sit up there the entire day and just eat and eat and eat and eat until such time as there is nothing left. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is. He also doesn't need water throughout the day. I mean, he's still gaining moisture from the carcass that he's eating, and he can go and get, you know, water tonight when he's finished this carcass, because this carcass will be done tonight. He's not going to be here, you know, until tomorrow, so he can afford to sit up there all day long and just protect his carcass. And so once he's finished eating, or he feels like he's had enough, then he'll actually abandon the carcass rather than just go for water. And then, like I say, as soon as he does that, then yes, most definitely you will find that both of these leopards will try and get up into the tree. Tandi's got no chance though. The signal from Hosanna was very clear, is that I've had enough of you, I'm bigger than you, stop bullying me. And he's now gone back towards the kill itself, and she's been left on the side. So the pecking order here would definitely be Hosanna next. Tundi might try her luck, but I'm pretty sure Hosanna will chase her away. We've seen him stealing carcasses from her now in the past, and so he knows that he's bigger and stronger and can outmuscle her off a carcass. So he would be up next, and then if he really didn't want anything, then obviously Tundi and Tlalamba would then be the next ones to come through. I'm 99% sure that Tlalamba is also here. Because it's a very different Tundi that we're seeing now, that she's lying where she is. So when she first approached this, she didn't see Hosanna at all. She kind of walked up and saw Tingana in the tree, and she was about to kind of start calling, and then she spotted Hosanna, and that aggression was because Hosanna was on her kind of western side for most of this, and that meant that she didn't really have a chance to kind of get back to where she had come from, and she came from the west, and so there was a lot of interaction. As soon as Hosanna moved back towards this carcass, you see see her kind of whole demeanor change completely. She started to become far more relaxed, and that's probably because she's where between Hosanna and where potentially Kalamba has been left, and that would explain why her demeanor has changed so much. Also, I mean, now she's been shouted at by Hosanna and has been put in her place, and that's why she's just kind of working out now exactly what's going on. Hosanna, for all his kind of goofiness, showed a little bit of kind of backbone today, which is very good. I'm glad that he did. It's his only way that he's going to be able to kind of establish himself as a dominant male. He needs to be able to do these kind of things. He needs to stand up to other leopards, and particularly he's going to have to do it to big males as he starts to become more dominant. Right, now I see that Hassan is still asleep now. I'm a bit kind of concerned as to why my radio is making a whole bunch of noise, because my radio is supposed to be completely silent, but for some reason it's making noise, which is weird. Anyway, I'm going to try and figure that out and see what's going on, and while I do that, let's send you across to sulky Susan James Henry.
It must be nice when the biggest problem you have in your day is to figure out why your radio isn't working quite as nicely as you'd like it to, despite the fact that you have 3 leopards with you, and have had all morning, along with a hyena. It must be nice when that's your only problem. Right, my problem is finding a new stick. Apparently the Vov has been blamed. I'm not sure if it was him. I don't think it could have been, really, because I know he has his own stick out here. But somebody, when I was away, went on a walk, took my stick, obviously saw something, and then left my stick somewhere here in this wilderness. This vast place of sticks is where my stick is now. So I have to find a new one. And the best place to look for a stick is near a Combretum woodland, which is what we're in now, because the elephants break off good-sized sticks and then leave them on the ground, and then you can sort of carve them or take off the bark as you like. This particular one is going to be too big for me, because I am not 6 feet and 8 inches tall. But what is interesting is how this is a relatively fresh kill, if you like. There's a relatively fresh break from the elephants. We had 2 bulls coming through here the other day, quite possibly one of them. And so, although we're in October, the Combretum's still taking a bit of a fearful hammering. And you can see where the elephant's teeth has taken off the bark. And obviously he's moved on from this one. He didn't have a proper go at it. But you can see a lot of very red tannin in this bark, and I wonder if that isn't in preparation for the new growth season. Perhaps it's all travelling up towards the leaves, or towards where the new leaves will be. Still wet, still quite moist. So this is a red bush willow that the elephants have dug up, and they like to go for the roots if they can get at them, but they will have a go at the branches as well. You can see he passed this all the way through his rather vast mouth, like so. Oh, you're all saying Brent took my stick. Did you see him take my stick? No. Sebastian says he agrees. So I said, did you see him take my stick? And he went, no. He just wants to agree. Brent has that club, though, that he takes. He doesn't take a little stick. He takes that sort of Ugg the Caveman club with him when he goes on his walks. He likes to call it the Gandalf stick. I think we should probably call it the Ugg the Caveman stick. You know, it looks like he might set upon something that took his displeasure with it. See, lots of opportunity for stick here. The elephants have pulled up these trees. Here's a really nice example of it over here. They've gone for the roots here. Left the above ground stuff completely alone, and they've gone for the roots. This is probably the only way to kill a Combretum tree, is to dig it up like this and then leave it where it cannot grow. And that's why elephants are the modifiers of this landscape. Far more than fire, far more than human beings in this particular area. Interesting. They've gone for the roots, eaten the roots off. That's where, of course, all the nutrients are stored during the winter season. And that is the most common tree that we get here, Combretum Apicuratum, the red bush willow. And interestingly, it is also the densest wood that we get here. So it's the hardest wood with a density of somewhere around 1,350 kilograms per cubic meter, which in theory means that it will not float. I've yet to see that actually happen. I've yet to put a piece in water and have it sink. Wait. There is a yellow pansy butterfly over there. Oh, very pretty. Gorgeous in the sun. 3 leopards. Who needs 3 leopards when you've got a yellow pansy butterfly? Just come out of its chrysalis, probably, emerged into what it hoped would be a green and verdant landscape, and instead it has found a wind-torn, grey winterscape. Don't worry, little thing, if you can survive for the next few days, possibly a week, you will find things will change. Isn't that lovely? First decent butterfly I've had of the season, which is nice. So that is the yellow pansy. Lilani, you want to know if I have a favourite plant to come across while I'm on walk? Well, any plant that I can eat, I quite enjoy. And it's not because I'm hungry when I'm walking around out here. We get fed in the camp once a week, which, you know, it's not a lot, but we get through it. Bread and water. It's because there's something about taking food directly from a tree or from nature and eating it that makes me feel rather connected with the wilderness. I don't know why that should be. I'm not sure if anyone else has that feeling, but marula season, I love to go past a marula, and even if I'm not slightly hungry, I'll pick one up and I'll eat it. Or a sour plum, or a bushman's grape, or something like that. I always enjoy those sorts of plants, just because it gives me a sense of, wow, here's nature providing. I think that's what it is. I find it difficult to articulate the feeling that it gives me. Apparently, I actually don't believe this is true. I'm going to call Kirsten's bluff on this. She says we're going to Tristan because there's another leopard coming into the sighting.
Well done, James Henry. You are calling Kirsty's bluff. There isn't a fourth leopard here. We're just the three of them. Still just the three. I say just the three like it's casual. I mean, it's still ridiculous that there are 3 leopards all in one here. And there could very well be a fourth one somewhere close by. I wouldn't be surprised if little Kalamba makes an appearance. It's that kind of morning where I suppose anything can happen. Poor James Henry is feeling very sorry for himself. He's going to be even more upset when he gets back to camp and realizes that there's no more coffee for him, and that he can't make his coffee on a cold winter morning when he's been walking around. No, I'm joking, there's coffee as well, James, don't worry. I think playing with the man's coffee is probably going to kind of end up in one of us being killed. Kirsty also got a fright too. No, don't worry guys, there's still coffee, and food order is going to be placed today anyway, so you will all have coffee again just in a few short days. But it's all quite sort of placid now after the chaos. Everything is kind of calmed right down. You can see there's Tingana's shoulders. He's having a very big sleep. I thoroughly enjoyed watching his reaction just now when Hosanna came running in and chasing Tundi. While I was watching them, I just glanced over at Tingana, who had the widest eyes ever watching all of this, and then kind of saw that they were both nose to nose, and then just flopped his head down as though it meant nothing, and then just carried on as if to say, you know what, you siblings sort out your own drama, I'm not interested, I'm just going to have my nap here, just keep it down if you are going to fight with one another. And so he carried on just kind of having a little bit of a nap, which was really, really cool. So amazing to kind of see. You would think with that kind of aggression and that kind of growling and hissing that Tingana would have come down the tree to kind of get involved, but he's just sort of thought to himself, no, I'm not going to get involved in this nonsense. This can be a dispute that the siblings can sort out. He probably has an inkling of the reputation that Tundi has, and he's like, I don't need that kind of crazy in my life today. That's just too much for me. I'm going to let that all kind of play out. It's Sunday after all, and a day of rest. And as Kirsty quite rightly sort of pointed out, it was flabbergasting to see how he was uninterested in this whole kind of spat between Hosanna and Thandi. Hosanna also is completely uninterested, and Thandi looks as though she soon is going to be uninterested too, because she's also slowly but surely kind of falling asleep in the nice, beautiful, warm sunshine that she's in. The wind is still howling, however, which is not that pleasant. It's why she's a bit twitchy. This is when that wind really gusts. It obviously kind of moves leaves and grasses, and she then kind of gets a bit twitchy and looks around. I highly doubt she's going to spend the whole day here. I would be very, very, very surprised if all three were still here this afternoon, but we certainly will come and try and investigate. Aja's Hukumuri is keeping himself busy in the west, so he spends most of his time around Arathusa, Elephant Plains, Simambili, that area, and he's got Shadulu and Tiani that are keeping him quite busy there. I think he even was seen with Moya, I believe, once or twice. I don't think they've mated, but he's been seen in the same kind of in company with her. So he's busy on that side of the world. Since Tingana has become a bit more resurgent and has bulked up again, Hukumuri has not stepped foot as close to Juma as he used to. He's, I think, found out very quickly that he is not quite in the same league as Tingana, even though Tingana is aging a little bit. So we don't see Hukumuri that much. Now, every now and then he makes a little foray into Juma and kind of moves around. He was seen, when was it? When was the day that we had, I can't remember now. It was the day we had Tingana at Buffelshoek Dam, which was when? When did we do our first rehearsal? Kirsty, Tuesday? Monday or Tuesday. He was seen Monday, that's right, yes. He crossed into Juma on Monday. And then it was, when was it? Not last night, the night before. James had an audio of a leopard calling very close to Triple M, just on the inside of Simambili, which I'd imagine would also be him. So he drifts around on that western boundary, but he certainly does not kind of come in like he used to. I mean, he used to walk where we are now, which is right in central Juma. He would never dream of it at the moment, with Tingana being around and back into his normal self and vocalizing and scent marking and doing what he's doing. It's meant that Hukumuri has been a lot more kind of at bay than he was, and so we don't see Hukumuri much, which is in a way a blessing, because it means that we get to see sightings of Thandi and Kalamba again, and Hosanna would not be here if Hukumuri was roaming like he was towards sort of March, April sort of time, when he was all over the place. I mean, we had a sighting of Hukumuri even on Cheetah Cutline, to give you an idea of how far east he was pushing at one point. And now he doesn't go further east than it seems as then Treehouse Dam, kind of Zoe's area, which is on the opposite side of the property. So, you know, it's amazing just to see how much of an effect a dominant male can have in terms of vocalizing and scent marking for keeping a male leopard at bay. Remember when Hukumuri came in here, Tingana wasn't doing those things. In fact, Tingana wasn't even patrolling, and so there was no chemical boundary, nor was there a vocal boundary. But since Tingana came back and has started to scent mark and to soar and to really kind of push himself into this area, Hukumuri has most definitely made himself far more scarce in many respects. Now, Thandi, you can see, is kind of falling asleep. Hosanna had a brief glimpse at her and is now kind of stretching and rolling on his back like a kind of clown that he can be at times. There we go, you can see him in the sort of background, just kind of keeping a close eye on Thandi. Right, now, while we sit here and see whether or not we get a round 3 in terms of the boxing between these two, let's send you back across to Jamie, who's driving and I'm sure is not enjoying this wind that is howling.
I'm not really enjoying this wind, but I'm not the only thing out here that isn't enjoying it. A lot of the smaller antelope are desperately trying to hide wherever they possibly can. Admittedly, that is the standard approach of a tiny antelope like this by little Steenbok. Tiny little male Steenbok who's lying down, tucked up and cuddled, trying to shelter. So what I've been doing is basically lurking around Tristan's leopard sighting like a hyena at the bottom of a tree with a kill in it, waiting for a scrap, waiting for Tristan's sighting to throw me a bone. I was hoping maybe one of the leopards might move. Well, not hoping, but I was just thinking if one of the leopards did move off, then at least having 2 of us in the area, one of us could follow one leopard and the other could stay with the others, just to make sure we keep track of them and where they head off to. I was also going to say that I was searching for Tlalamba, because I haven't seen her. But I figured that if I said I was searching for Tlalamba, then she'd probably just rock up at Tristan's sighting anyway. So I didn't even mention that. That seems to be the way it goes. So I was around where Tristan was, just searching. No, James Richard, not yet. So James is wondering about whether or not we've seen any tortoises or any signs of tortoises coming out of their estivation yet. Just to give a little bit of background for our newer viewers, estivation is what the reptiles or a couple of different species do in this area. It's like hibernation, but it's estivation because it's usually for dry. So they sort of shut down, they slow down, they rest up during the dry months, and they come out during the summer months. It has rained a little bit, not very much. It's been more a sort of light drizzle than it has been a soaking rain. But I think the fact that it's still a little bit chilly has stopped them from coming out. So I haven't seen any tracks of tortoises yet. I don't know if Gregory is still around the DRC. Is Gregory still around? No. Is Gregory gone? Okay, well, Kirst says that last year Gregory only came out in November. Gregory is a female speaks hinge tortoise who lives at the DRC, at our camp. Not DRC like the Republic of Congo. I mean DRC, the Djuma Research Center? What does it stand for again? Djuma Research Camp. That's it. And that is where we all live. So Gregory hasn't come out yet. Kirst says she only came out last year in November, so we'll wait and see. Looking forward to little baby Gregorys. I'm hoping. Oh, there's Robert as well. Is Robert also a speaks hinge tortoise? David? Robert is one of Gregory's babies, in theory, as far as we know, as far as we can tell. Robert is a tiny speaks hinge tortoise who came out slightly too early and found himself in trouble, or herself. Why is it called Robert? He has been released back into the wild. Yeah, go away, wind. So no sign of Tlalamba. Doesn't mean I didn't miss her track somewhere. I suspect that she was in the Mulwati. That was where Tundi was prowling around yesterday, so I suspect that Tlalamba is in the Mulwati somewhere, waiting for Mum to come and fetch her, or tell her it's okay. While I have taken Tristan's leopard sighting with good grace, given that I could have been there if I'd made different decisions, and I had hyena cubs, let's go over to Jealousy James for his last moment of the morning.
Jealousy James is walking through the bush, felt the bush, felt. Jealousy James is walking through the bush, felt the bush, felt. Jealousy James is going to see Jealousy Jamie very soon. Jealousy James and Jealousy Jamie eating of the breakfast. That's the worst song ever. But yes, I am jealous. Jealousy Jamie and I will be having commiseratory breakfast very soon. Where is Jealousy Jamie as we speak? There she is. Hello! You see, David has let the aerial down. David, your aerial is down! Means he's had enough, obviously. He's decided he's not going to be broadcasting further today. Yes, that's how you do it. What you do is, if you don't want to be on screen, what you do is you put your aerial down and then say, oh, but I don't have signal. That's what's going on here. Yes. Yes. What is your instruction?
First, he says you have to sing us the Jealousy James and Jamie song.
Oh, right. Stand by. I will now sing you the Jealousy James and Jamie song. I just have to see if I can remember it. Apparently I have to floss at the same time. This is flossing. And the song goes like this. Jealousy James and Jealousy Jamie walking through the bush veld. Jealousy James and Jealousy Jamie walking through the bush veld. Jealousy James and Jealousy Jamie walking through the bush veld. Shortly to have commiseratory breakfast together. What did you think? I think it was very good. Kirsten now wants me to link to Tristan with 3 leopards. I'm not going to. I think she can crash cut for all I care.
Well, James, unfortunately she did crash cut for all you can. She's not taking any of your nonsense this morning, but it's really quite something to have had 3 leopards. I wish James has actually been here. James loves it when there's these interactions between all of them, and so I always kind of think to myself, it would be nice to have all of us together to discuss it as a kind of grouping in one sighting. So it would be nice to have had Brent and Jamie and James and Sydney and everybody together in the sighting and kind of go through exactly what happened and kind of bounce things off each other. It's always good when you get those kind of things. We normally do that anyway when we are when we get back to camp. We definitely exactly for Safari Lives. There we go. Tomorrow afternoon we'll have I'm pretty sure a long discussion about this sighting and what it kind of means. The wind, however, is still kind of getting stronger, which if that's even possible. It really is kind of blowing a gale at the moment. It's not very pleasant at all, but I'm hoping that they're all going to rest now. They all look as though they're going to sleep here. If we can have these guys this afternoon, can you imagine that for a first kind of start to our SABC sort of drives? That'll be very cool. Now, for those of you who don't know what the SABC is, basically it's a local broadcaster here in South Africa, and it's a TV channel that is freely available across South Africa to anyone. So it doesn't require a data connection or anything like that. As long as you've got a VHF single, you can get it. And so it really opens Safari Live up to a lot of people that probably can't afford decent internet to be able to watch these things, as well as to the whole of South Africa. And it's very important that we educate not only the world but even everybody here within our country about what goes on within their own borders. Anyway, on that note, Tandy is looking around. I wonder if Columba is going to arrive just to make James even more jealous. But we are going to be heading home now. It's that time of the day where it's breakfast time for us, not just for the leopards. And so it's been a blustery, windy morning, but a very good one in many respects. Lots of cuteness from the hyena den as per normal, and Jamie whispering them out. I don't know how she does it. And then of course, well, the stars of the show in Tandi, Hosana and Tingana. But we'll see you all this afternoon. It's been an absolute pleasure from James, myself and Jamie. We'll see you later on the Sunset Safari.